morning. Good morning. Welcome to the joint meeting here, Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen. We're going to do budget reviews today with all our department budgets. Found out in the past this worked really well to have everybody come in a day, we compare everything and see it all in context. So we're going to start first with our illustrious police department.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Everyone this morning. Please be gentle, it's my first budget.
Right. Next.
Chair should swear in the person doing the
Nice try. It was worth a shot.
Nice try.
Basically, the budget, the budget presented, the level of staffing budget, everything in the budget is contractual, so not to try and, to minimize it, but, the budget, basically covers everything that's, covered in the union contract or, management contracts. The level staffing budget is a 1.1% increase over last year. It's about $11,000. And basically it leaves us at the 17 officers we currently are, and the 5 dispatch personnel that we currently operate under. That gets us, we did grow 1 officer this year up to 17, which actually puts us back at the level we were at 2004, before the layoffs and everything occurred in 2004. So basically, we haven't grown anything in the last 10 years. So the budget I'm really asking for is the 18 officer budget, which is a 2.2% increase, which is $1,379,557 is the patrol side. That's where the increase is. Currently, we spend approximately a little over $3,000 a week, or we've been spending about $3,000 a week in overtime. The 18 officer budget, that would, my overtime budget would drop down by approximately $28,000, and then I'm asking the town to make up the rest. Overtime typically covers investigations, filling of shifts, programs we do, court time, all the extras that are provided. Like yesterday, that search, there was 12 extra personnel brought in. Obviously the large part of yesterday's search was NEMLAC, but we'll get into that another time. Which saves us obviously a lot of money and gives us resources we normally wouldn't have. What's happened is the town has continued to grow with the point opening, and also with the 15 Great Road coming online. There's a couple more call centers coming online, and the technical aspects of the police work have also increased. And the 18th officer actually would go to become a dedicated school resource officer. Well, right now we have the school resource officer is also a detective. I'm sorely in need of the second detective only doing detective work. The drug issues in town and in surrounding towns are growing exponentially. The type of case we investigate now is getting more and more technical, and the SRO just does not have the time to also do the secondary part when the school year is in, of being the detective, and I'm very much in need of that personnel. But also too, the school resource officer position is integral to the town and integral to the department. It is so important in this day and age to have somebody in the schools that is just dedicated to the schools. By freeing that person up and having it just an SRO, we'll be able to get more into the middle school and the elementary school we're really not into right now. And also that person will also be able to take over some of the elder programs and things of that nature. That will ease up somewhat on some of the overtime. That's why I'm confident of being able to come down on my overtime budget in that budget. Control center stays staffed the same way it is right now, five people. The one change will be is we'll do a supervisor's promotion sometime after the first of the new fiscal year. Currently, with all the changeover we had there, we've been running, one of my senior sergeants has been running it as a supervisor, but by contract, it has to have a supervisor within their ranks. So that is also carried forward in the budget. Expenses stay the same. The only pressure on expenses can be sometimes would be the line item for cruiser maintenance. We do have a fleet of 9 vehicles plus the plow truck, so 10 vehicles. We had some carryover from last year, which really hurt this year's cruiser maintenance budget. But with the purchasing of the new vehicles and the way we're putting the new warranties on them and turning them over, we're actually able to save some money. We had one vehicle that was out of warranty. It's the 4Runner, which I'm looking to replace this year, which cost us $5,000 right off the bat, which on a $13,000 cruiser maintenance budget is a pretty hard hit to take in the first month. But we're making it work. As far as going into the capital expenditures this year, it's replacing 2 line cruisers, which is the normal turnover. One unmarked, which would be for the 150,000 mile 4Runner. And then you'll notice on the 10-year capital plan, you don't see unmarked cruisers for another 6 years. At that point, the Expedition, which is still on the line, which will be the deputy's vehicle, once the deputy's promoted, only has 45,000 miles, so that'll go another 5 years before that cycle starts again, 5 years out for unmarked. So it'll stay at 2 marked cars a year for the next 5 years roughly. The tires expenditure is the norm of every year. It's what we expend in tires, and it all goes to tires. The radio maintenance budget is for lack of a better term, is the insurance policy that protects the $1.6 million investment between the police, fire, highway, and it's already paid for itself this year when we did it. It also gives us 2 checkups a year and things like that, what we didn't have before, that come with it. So it's well worth its price. And the only other thing I asked for in capital was the $7,000 to refurb the plow truck that the highway department gave us a number of years ago. Some of the doors are rusting through, things of that nature. It's about a $7,000 job to refurb it. It's what's used to keep we use it, one, to keep take the pressure off the highway department, keep our lot open here. It's also used to bring the signboard around, and it also is set up to bring cones and other equipment down to major scenes, things of that nature. So it's the utility vehicle, if you will, for all the extraneous stuff that's out there. There's really no, this year, the only pressure on this year's budget was obviously being too short in the control center. And of course, we ran too short all summer long with 2 individuals all long time sick, which put some pressure on the overtime budget, but we're okay. I don't book in here any kind of grants or anything like that we're able to get. We try to keep those in reserve, so I don't have to come back to you folks for reserve fund transfers and things like that. Gives us a little bit of a cushion that we can absorb some. I did ask for some overtime monies back, obviously, in the control center at town meeting this year, just because we basically expended 100% already 6 months through the year. That's really the basics of it. We're in the process of collecting information to fulfill the selectmen's mandate of coming up with a strategic plan for the department. Luckily for us, it's fairly easy. The building is here, so it's more about personnel and things like that, and upkeep of the building. The building itself is actually held together quite well. With some of the grants and other things, we've also been able to stay ahead of the technology game with assistance from Nancy, but we've also pursued any kind of monies that we can find to keep our computer systems, at the level they should be and things like that. So all of a sudden, we're not coming back to the town and saying in 1 year, I need $30,000 because I have to replace every computer in my building. So with Nancy's assistance and the assistance of the money from our side, we've been able to stay ahead of that curve, and we've been able to knock down some expenses for the town. The copper lines should be all disconnected now. So we're just trying to finish all those numbers, and that equates to some number that we we're paid for every month, because when we went to the UHF system, that took our reliance off the phone company. And we're always looking for ways to do things more efficiently, because, more bang for your buck, obviously, is good for me and it's good for you. We kept our pencil sharp this year when he came in, and we stayed at about, again, the budget I'm asking for is a 2.2% increase. And I realize the pressures, but I would really ask that they consider the 18th officer at this point.
When is the strategic plan? What's the timing for that?
Fiscal year, our calendar year, I would say.
Right, so I believe, come springtime. Right now, the town's at about 9,500 people, according to what Diane Corey has told me. And the average, according to the Department of Justice and Bureau of Justice Assistance, should be about 1.9 officers per 1,000, which will put us right on that 18 and 19.
It's obviously the main thing with the budget, with this part of the budget, aside from the schools, it's all people, right? So as I look at yours and the fire department, park and rec, and so that's always the key. And so that's why when you get into the strategic plan, for all these things, putting that together.
Right, I mean, you figure $1.6 million of my $1.7 million budget is personnel costs. That's.
Mr. Chairman, when we and Mr. Glavy went through this, we did find out that there were a couple pieces here. When he was looking at the additional, the 18th officer, it's not a direct addition. That does decrease over time as a result of that. So when we looked at the mathematics of it, turns out to be about a $17,000 delta there.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. Well, and I'm certainly not pushing back on it. I'm just trying to set the tone overall, what we're looking. I mean, the whole purpose of doing this all together today is to get all that together so that we can make the big decisions that we got to make. So, but I appreciate you bringing that up, and I did notice that in the numbers, and you mentioned it as well, that saves a lot of the overtime, so that.
Well, I'm hoping to save more. I'm hoping some year I can actually get and stay at full strength for a whole year, so I actually know what my overtime budget, my overtime number will be. I'm praying. I thought I was coming into my first year in July at full strength and running great, and all of a sudden I'm two people in the control center gone and 2 people on the patrol side gone. It's like, but
You're running a people business. It's
oh, yeah.
probably never going to be perfect, right?
Not if we're going to continue to be in any wars or anything. As
Yeah,
long as that
that's true,
continues, I don't see
please.
staffing being stable.
Any other questions?
I just have a chief. You have 2 detectives, and you want to make 1 full-time detective? Is that?
Right. Well, currently I have a sergeant in charge of the bureau and a detective SRO. And what I want to do is take the SRO away from the detectives. It'll be a patrol assignment, but I need the extra body to do that. So there'll still be 2 detectives, but the detective will be full-time within the bureau. Won't have any responsibilities over the school system at all. Because right now, basically, when September 1st starts, I lose that person almost, until June. And the schools, the amount of things that are coming out of the schools now is amazing. There's just, it's unfortunate, but, I'm going to give a briefing, Scott and I, shortly on the drug issues with the community and other things, and, I think you're going to be shocked at some of the things that are going on, that, we just, you don't expect in a town of 10,000 people, but it's a pretty horrific stories. And I just need that. I need that extra body. I'm not looking for bodies just to add bodies. I need that extra investigative time. And and that person actually is going to go on nights to some degree. So.
The detective?
Yes.
What is going to happen with the SRO then? Is that going to be staffed to the level it is now?
That's if I get the 18th. Yes, it'll be staffed even better, because it'll be a patrol assignment. It'll still come. It won't be a detective anymore. It'll be a patrol assignment, but strictly as an SRO into the school system. So yes, that's the 18th person, and that will actually encompass more in the schools, because right now Detective Fernandez is kind of pulling double duty. And, he's putting in a lot of overtime because of cases and everything else. And, I need better follow through. And, I'm not saying we're not doing it, but I just need that dedicated person. Also, too, I want to get ahead of the point, not behind the point. Nothing against it, but it does bring on other issues that come out of there for the detectives to work on, chiefs with other facilities that size with the hotels and things have told me, what to expect. And, there's more larcenies, there's more shoplifting, there's more, things that the patrols end up, going to and the detectives end up having to look at. So, again, I want to partly stay ahead of that curve, but the problem is right now I'm kind of behind the curve already. And I've noticed that especially this year with investigations. And patrol, I'm pretty confident on. I like where we're at. I can go home and put my head on my pillow and not worry about the town. There are some nights, Friday and Saturday nights, I don't like going out to 2 cars on Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights. Which we currently can do if we have to, trying to save some overtime, but, come the point and other things when there's, another 3 or 4 or 5 liquor serving establishments, things like that, a center that's open till 2 o'clock in the morning, things of that nature, we'll have to do some scheduling. That's gonna happen actually once Pat O'Donohue gets back, when that 17th officer actually is here. There'll be like a 5 to 1 shift, a 6 to 2 shift, some overlap, things like that. So, we're definitely looking at some changes, but I definitely need more investigations.
So I like your,
I just want to follow up. So, what level does it go from a patrol officer doing the investigation to going to the detective bureau?
Time-wise, more than anything else, it's how much time it's gonna take, because the patrols are covering everything that's on the road and all the calls that are, all the, call volume that's coming in there. And as you saw, OUIs are up, OUIs are currently going up, the, criminal activity in and of itself, and again, it's strange, we're an anomaly community for a town of 9,500 people, and it's because of all our access. We have, 4 major exits off the highway, between Route 2 and 495. We have such pass-through traffic. Also, 98% of our 300 arrests are not Littleton residents. They're from, they're not from our community. They're from, they're pass-throughs. And, some of it's motor vehicle, some of it's larceny, some of it's drug delivery, some of it's, but we're also feeling the pressure too, where the 40Bs have changed a little bit. There's a lot more, there's a lot more city problems coming in, and there's other things that have opened in the community that have put pressure. Things on Shattuck Street have put more pressure on response time for both police and fire, and things of that nature. So realistically, what it is, it's either a value, and it's really time more than anything else. If the detectives, if the patrol can take something and it's something they can run down, it's left with them. We make a decision, and it depends. And some of the patrols have come to us and said, hey, I'd really like to follow this up, and obviously we encourage that because that builds, someone to move up in rank later on to into the detective bureau. So it can either be assignment, and it a lot matters on whether the whole crime center's in Littleton. And as you know, with how the pass-through problems, a lot of times, it doesn't just center here. It may end up here, but they're going, to New Hampshire,
Sometimes they don't
we're-
complete the pass-through.
Right. Well, for instance, the armed robbery, we're taking that, that's going to the grand jury now. The guys were able to run that down, and they were up in the, in Maine and New Hampshire, running down the people who did that one, because it was all spread out.
So, you mentioned the SRO taking over some elderly affairs type, more engagement with the seniors in town, so that would be very beneficial.
Absolutely. Well, as you know, this year we actually brought in Act for Seniors, Rape Aggression Defense. Ashley Brooks has been in there with them. John Janakos is continuing, but again, the seniors is another one of our centers that we're trying to, they're being preyed on. My 87-year-old dad gets 3 phone calls a day from somebody trying to get his information off of them, or they're online. And we had an elderly gentleman, a person I know well, at the bank trying to withdraw $10,000 to send because he won the Australian lottery and was going to be set for life. And it took me everything I had to convince him not to take that money out. We had a woman up in the trailer, up in the Air Road Trailer Park area, who lost over $50,000 to these vultures. It's education, it's you know, it's trying to get in there, it's, you know, with the youth and with the, you know, all the way, because, you know, they're vulnerable.
Ms.
I can add just, I don't know if Peter spoke to this before I came here or not, but we did have a chance to meet with Matt, and not surprisingly, we were very reassured with the management of the department and the forward thinking, and, you know, what I think at this point is a very reasonable request, handled pretty conservatively in the numbers, and, you know, the building's holding up well, internal departments, issues, there really aren't any, transition was smooth. You know, there's an eye toward getting more engagement with the community on the programs that seem to work, which, you know, folks are just talking about, more engagement with seniors, businesses, et cetera. I felt very comfortable. The rolling stock fleet has been, you know, it's the plan we're accustomed to. No surprises, so this is good.
You know,
What we like, no
Mr. Chairman, it was, out of all the activities that we've seen within the town, this is a very, it's a very simple budget. You know, he's looking for one additional officer, 3 new vehicles, part of a planned rotation, fixing a plow truck that's been a hand-me-down from another department, and a few maintenance items, 2.2% increase overall.
Appreciate your fiscal stewardship as well as your, obviously,
Well, I think, you
more
know,
important running a good department.
I think everybody, you know, in the town attempts to do the best they can.
It's not being spoken to here, but he's pretty aggressive in terms of seeking outside grants. We were poking around technology items and other items. Those are covered by the work that they've been doing by securing those grants.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks, Gene.
Scott, you're up. Oh, sorry, I didn't turn the page.
What's that?
Did everyone show up and her age or whatever? Because I noticed that when I came in.
Oh, I think you need a
What does that say?
I wasn't out late at night. I gotta learn.
Right, so, first place we can cut out is a color printer. Yeah, okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
And as you can see on my budget presentation that you already have in there, it's big enough so that you don't even need your glasses.
We heard about that.
Yes, we heard about the font size, Chief. We heard all about the font size.
All right. You go through your PowerPoint, what you want to do?
Yeah, if you don't mind, we'll go right through that. Everything's pretty much covered in that.
Okay.
That's covered in the budget. Just a quick review as far as the staffing situation. As you are all well aware, we went to the 24-hour coverage over a year ago, and it's worked out great. And we've reduced our response times are in the average of 4 or 5 minutes. It's excellent.
Personally attest to that, and they're to pick me up.
What's that?
I can personally attest
Really?
to that, sure.
He was late for today's meeting.
No,
He had to go get him.
No, they gave me an ambulance ride or 2 in August, so.
Oh, I didn't know about that. I didn't tell about that.
I'm here to talk about it. There you go. It's all well.
It's been, so, at least the initial piece of apparatus out, be it the ambulance, the first engine, it's been a excellent results with that. We are still challenging, still a little bit challenged with the call department. That second piece of apparatus that's coming out is still in that 9 to 17 minute range. So if the guys are on scene, they do have a little bit of time to wait for additional backup. And that's where the deputy and myself come in as far as responding directly from home with our vehicles. So we are their immediate backup, and if not arriving simultaneously with them. Our services that we provide, medical emergencies, fire investigations, fire responses, crashes on the highway. One of the biggest things that we've increased over the last year is the public education and our education with the seniors. Last year we did, I believe we gave out around 140 detectors to the seniors for the carbon monoxide smoke detector program. So that was an excellent, we ran out of stock and used some private funds to purchase additional materials for it. So we just applied for that grant again this year, and hopefully we'll be getting that to ramp that back up. We are also out in the schools. In the past, we've done K through 2, and now I'm pretty sure we're covering just about every grade, and then in the high school, we're doing CPR. So they're all CPR certified by the time they graduate. You go on the first graph. You can see some of the staffing changes back in 2002 when we actually had 62 members in the department. Today we've rebounded a little bit. It's dropped significantly, but we rebounded. We're back up to about 34, and with a slight increase on the full-time department. Again, one of the challenges on call staffing is the time commitment. They go to the fire academy for 5 months on their own dime. They're not paid for that. So it's some pretty intense dedication to go to the academy. When they graduate, they are certified firefighter 1 and 2, and we'll put them in, they can respond to all the incidents with the fire department. But again, our challenges are with families and other commitments, so they're not necessarily available all the time to respond. On the weekends, our per diem slots, since we have the full-time, on the next page, sorry, the full-timers cover 2 per 24 hours, and on the weekends, on Saturday and Sunday, we have 2 shifts each day. Those are for the call members, and that's to keep up their skills as well as still participate, have an active role in the department, especially for the EMTs. Unfortunately, we've only been able to fill that about 70% of the time, again, to family commitments and work issues. Last year, we brought in over 61 ambulances, mutual aid, unfortunately, because we were unable to fill the second ambulance. Either the engine was out or the first ambulance on a medical, so those were most likely back-to-back medicals. That was requested, and that results in lost revenue for us. It's roughly $70,000 in billable revenue. So, and going forward for our staffing plan, we applied for the SAFER grant last year for the 4 individuals, and unfortunately we were not successful with that. What the government's looking at right now, and their main focus is retention for a lot of these larger city departments. So unfortunately, with only requesting a small number, we didn't have success with that, and it will be coming out again, I believe in January, is what the announcement was yesterday. So unfortunately, we will. It's not very favorable for us in that. But what we are looking for, or actually, back up a step. We have a flex position, what we call our flex position. That's currently 4 days a week. We use that position to save some overtime. First person out, that person just slides in and allows us the ability to cover some of those shifts. What we're looking for, or actually, sorry, one of the drawbacks with the flex position is that we run down in staffing. So if it's a 5-person day, we'll run down to 4. There are some days that we run down to 3, depending on how the budget's going and how we decide to cover. In the next graph, you can actually see the declining coverage on the weekend shifts. This was done since January. The dark blue is actually the shifts that were not able to be filled, and the light blue is the total weekends that were available. When we first started it was excellent, and it was the winter time where sometimes people have more time to spend on the weekends to cover. But right now it's a struggle. We'll take anybody that we can.
So when you talk about shifts, I'm sorry, because some of this stuff I still don't know how it all works. So for the call members,
Yep.
they sign up to be available for a weekend, or as opposed to just listening to their radios and say, oh, somebody needs me, and they take off? So you actually have somebody that you say they are on standby to go?
Nope, they're actually in the station.
Oh.
So we have 2 personnel that are full-time 24 hours, and then we have 2 slots on Saturday and 2 on Sunday from 8 to 4, where the call members they're working the station. They're able to keep up their skills, do training, respond to calls, so that they can keep up with everything that's
So
going
they're
on in
there
the
and they're
department as well.
paid for being there, whether or not they get called out and so on, but they're
Correct.
there staffing the
Yes.
station. Okay,
Yep.
I didn't
They're
understand.
doing maintenance,
Okay.
different things around the station.
They come in and they sign up, we do 2 nights a year, they come in, they pick weekends and they sign up for the shift.
Yeah, we have two bid nights.
Okay.
So, for example, I want to see if I'm reading this right. In October, your total shifts, so you're saying there were 16 shifts in October, and yet you only filled 8 or 9 of them?
Correct.
Okay, because you're understaffed?
Well, because for the one reason or another, the call members aren't available, be it family issues or work-related issues, so those shifts go unfilled. They are not filled by full-time personnel. Those are just, so there's no overtime given for those. They are only for the call department.
And what's the risk that we run when these are unfilled shifts?
Staffing the next piece of apparatus. So there are several, there's approximately, back to that 61 medicals that we weren't unable to staff a second ambulance for. 28 of those were on the weekend coverage.
Okay, thank you.
So if we were able to fill them all the time, that was, potential revenue of 28 calls. The next graph up is our responses. You can see a small dip in 2012, and I apologize for cutting it short by about a year. But it goes back up, and this year we are actually on track to hit about 1,500. So 2011 we were at 1,500, and we will hit that again this year. So the runs are increasing, and the majority of our calls are medicals and crashes. I mean, we all know there's not a lot of fires anymore, but we're a multi-emergency response company. We respond to a variety of issues.
Even though the trend is obviously up, is there one dip here? Any explanation there, what happened? Or, no?
No,
Didn't show up in any one
nothing,
place?
Actually, with several conversations in other communities, they've all seen similar things. You hit it one random year, and the runs are just down. So it was a little odd, a quiet year, and then, as you can see, it just ramped right back up.
One of the interesting things I thought in your other packet that I was reading was that how the cars are so good now. A lot of times you go out to these accidents and people don't want to go to the hospital because they're fine.
Correct.
The cars are so safe now.
And-
It's like the house fires, right? So many less.
Right, and that's a significant issue. Our run volume is up, and we attribute a lot of that to motor vehicle accidents. Unfortunately, the crashes are more significant, yet with the protection systems, the airbags, the seat belts, you have cars that are totally destroyed, and there's somebody standing on the side of the road with a scratch on their hand.
Right.
As long as
Because
it's
they
not
ju-
like a
they just get out.
Nissan or whatever, right?
Yeah.
You have an issue with the airbags?
Exactly.
Nissans or whatever, or projecting things
so
out?
So it's a good
Unfortunately,
thing. It
yeah.
doesn't help your budget, but it's
Correct.
a wonderful thing.
The incidence of crashes go up, but unfortunately, that's where we've noticed a slight decrease in revenue also from.
But you still have to
crashes.
respond, but then yeah, right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Chief, thinking of 495 Route 2, if you took a community like Groton, how would the the number of responses you have compared to a town like that, how much of our time is spent on interstate highways?
Well, actually, and I can tell you,
You would think it'd be like half or
so
more,
in
right?
2014, we responded to 110 motor vehicle accidents. Out of that, I would bet probably half of them, maybe a little bit less than half, maybe a third of them were on the highways. So that's about a half hour each, maybe a little bit longer.
That's all right, 'cause we had 83 PI, personal injury accidents,
Yeah.
so.
More likely to be more serious on the highway probably than they are fender benders now. Not
Not
necessarily?
necessarily.
No, not necessarily?
It's
Interesting.
very interesting, unfortunately, or fortunately for everybody, the amount of refusals that we take now, just from safety in vehicles. So currently, we have the 4 shifts of 2 members. One of our goals going forward is to follow our staffing plan and have 4 shifts of 4. That, when I presented the budget a couple of years ago, we talked about that. That at least gives us the 2 people on an ambulance and 2 on an engine, or to staff a second ambulance. and as well as continuing to build a call department. Before I get into the next person, we can do a quick rundown of the budget. The FY16 level staffing budget in the blue. The salaries, that's contractual obligations only. There's no other increase other than what's on the contract for the level staffing. And if you flip the next page, on the mission budget, that's increased by about $40,000. And here we're looking to add an additional flex person. With the 2 flex persons, people on shift, we'd be looking to do basically 4 12-hour shifts, 4 12-hour days. So one person would work 4 days on and then have 4 off, and the other person would rotate. So there would be basically 3 full-time people, 7 days a week, working through that rotation. And the 2 flex positions would allow us to have these individuals basically fill the first vacancy out, which in the long run, it saves us overtime.
Chief, what's the difference between your blue and yellow columns when you have 16 and 16 mission?
16 level staffing, and the yellow is the 16 mission. The blue is the level staffing.
Basically, the addition of that one flex person.
Okay, so
Yep,
that's the...
it's
then-
the one additional person.
Okay, so your desired one is the 16 mission.
Correct. By allowing that one additional person, you can actually see, if you're looking at the yellow in the 16 mission, we do have a slight decrease in the EMS and officer on-call standby, as well as the EMS call-out, the per diem line, excuse me. By having that additional person, we would reduce one of the per diem shifts on the weekends, since we're already having a struggle filling some of those shifts. We'd allow one shift to remain for the call members for their continued training and support in there, and have the other filled by the flex position.
Combined about, it looks like about a $17,000 reduction between the 2 items?
Yes.
Huh?
That would slide right into the salary for that new flex position.
Yeah.
So in the next page, just the quick overview, again, add that one flex position this year. If we had the ability to add the 2 additional for next year, we'd be able to put a lieutenant on each group and have 4 shifts of 3, allowing each group to run short one if somebody were on vacation, run out sick, or be out sick. So we're trying to build in that the ability to save a little bit of overtime, looking, in the long term. That would also, by increasing the staffing, it's going to allow us to meet that NFPA 1720 code, which is the National Fire Protection Agency. They recommend that we have 4 on scene before we start any significant activity. And that's where the deputy and I kind of fall into place right now. We arrive on scene the same time that the first guys arrive on scene. Any questions on the level staffing of the mission?
Yeah, so your per diems during the weekend for, I know in previous years, we sat here and you talked about the per diems for your on-call. Has it been, how would you say the response has been? I know they're not filling, but better than it was without the per diems, or per diems working, I guess, what?
The per diem shift is working. There's a core group of individuals that work those shifts, including some of the officers. And they will come down, they will train on the weekends, they are responding to emergencies, obviously, and keeping up their skill level. Unfortunately, some of the straight EMTs on the department, they take advantage of it, but not as much as I'd like to see. And that's one of the results that we've seen, in the reduction of coverage by the per diems. So right now, the preference actually goes to the firefighter EMT, because we want to focus on that second ambulance. Right now, we have some of the new firefighters that are filling those voids that aren't EMTs, but it offers them a good opportunity for additional training. So they come down on the weekends and fill their shifts.
Are you seeing any more interest in any call firefighters or firefighting EMTs?
We currently have 3 in the academy. We had 3 graduate earlier in the year. There's 3 now. They graduated on December 30th. We have 4 of the newer firefighters that are currently in an EMT class right now. And so I would say within the next 6 months, we will have a new influx of fresh EMTs from the department. So we are trying. We have also received, I believe we have 3 or 4 additional applications for call. That the next class will be coming up in January, and it unfortunately won't be held in Stowe at the academy. I believe it's going to be in
Groveland.
Groveland?
Fall River.
Groveland and Fall
Excellent
River. They're
choice.
trying to push it out now to other towns that are looking for the class.
That should be the first rollout of the more abbreviated program, I think.
Not yet, not for the call ball. That's
Groveland was supposed to be where they dropped the
Was it?
hours.
that would be nice. 5 months is a long commitment. 2 nights a week and every Saturday.
How about your Explorers program? How is that for Groveland?
I think there's probably a little over a third of our department has come out of our Explorers program. So currently, the Explorers have began to ramp up. I believe they're up to 7 or 8 members right now. They went through a little lull, but there are, so we could potentially be getting one from them next year, who will be 18 and graduating, who's already shown some interest. So it's an excellent program, and like I said, we've received several members. That's where I started. But it's an excellent program, and we do receive many members through that.
Thank you. Bill, I have a couple of questions. You were talking about the lost revenue due to the second ambulance.
Yes.
What is the ratio, current ratio of the 2 calls back to back?
I believe it's 7% of our runs are back-to-back calls. Is that low?
That seems low.
Is it, I'll have to get back to you on that.
2003, it was 22%.
It's,
Not that that matters, it's 10 years later.
yeah, sorry, confusing some of my numbers on that. But I'll get back to you on that.
From a financial, I essentially have 3 questions. This is the second of them. From a financial perspective, how is the ALS agreement working out? I understand the quality is fantastic. Financially, is it doing everything you need it to do?
The program isn't bad. We've had several discussions over the last month or 2 about investigating the paramedic level service on our own. I think it's something that we should seriously consider pursuing. I think that it offers an opportunity. Unfortunately, the upfront loading of that is roughly $100,000 to $150,000. After that, I believe that it's something that we would see a significant increase on our billing rates. Personally, I think that's the way to go, to improve the service for our own town and benefit from that with the medic level service. I think currently there's, I believe that they're looking to increase their rates for billing. And Bonnie, have we've decreased slightly on that for our,
For the revenue?
for the revenue coming in?
It was pretty flat last year. We were expecting an
About
increase.
287,000?
It was, yeah, about 293, I think was the
293?
actual.
Okay.
So that's the yearly revenue? And you just offset his account by that, obviously?
Yeah, we put it into the receipts reserved for appropriation for ambulance receipts, and then we used about 287,000 of that annually. So that there's always a little bit left.
Right,
And
yeah. Okay.
And the last thing I had is, what's going on with emergency management? Is there any happenings there?
There are a lot of happenings there. The We've been dealing with the MRC. Unfortunately, we had a little mishap with the trailer, and it failed over last winter. We just received our insurance check. We're able to buy a new trailer, replace all the cots. We're looking at CERT training, which is Community Emergency Response Training, and we're combining, we've already begun to combine Boxborough in with our team, and what we're looking at is enhancing that service. Beginning some of that CERT training, and then having a few more, they have a couple small drills a year with the MRC, and we're looking at expanding some things with that. The emergency management portion, thankfully, it's all volunteer, and that takes, most of the responsibility. We have several grants that we go for with that as well. They're small. MRC just received another $5,000 grant that they're going to be putting towards shelter supplies and some other issues as far as their inoculation clinics, things like that nature.
I have I know time-wise we want to go, but I do want to ask you about the uniforms and phones. Because I know you mentioned it's a small increase, and for your budget, $5,000 is a small increase, but it's a 30% increase, and $5,000 would cover sometimes 3 or 4 other departments in total. So can you just talk about that increase a bit?
So, and that's in the Mission 16?
Right.
That was, that basically for, uniforms, phones, and gear. We actually, I think we originally we're budgeting that for an increase in there, which that may not necessarily come from that
Okay.
line, so there's some adjustable. If I, real quick, I'll hit the capital.
Oh, okay, yep.
And
Real quick, yep.
the first 3 items, major equipment, modular building, and the protective clothing, those are reoccurring costs every year. This year, what we are going for is a replacement of engine 2. That's a 1998 piece of apparatus that was originally purchased as a 10-year gap stop to fix, to fill the void for that time. There was a demo truck that is, at this time, is currently in a failing position. We've received an estimate, it's about $25,000 to $30,000 for a pump replacement on that. So right now, it's our backline piece, last to respond, and if we don't have to pump with it, we won't. Unfortunately, it does need some significant repair. What we are looking at on that is to begin the fleet reduction program. If we can replace that piece of apparatus this year, we will replace engine 2 as well as our rescue truck with a slightly larger fire engine that has more compartment space. We can put all of our rescue equipment from those 2 pieces on one truck, therefore reducing maintenance costs on multiple vehicles and having a more efficient piece going forward. On the next one is to replace engine 3. That was in last year and moved forward again. Engine 3 is our brush truck. That's a 1994 piece. That has significant pump issues every year. Ongoing, the maintenance on that is increasing each year. What we're looking to do with that is eliminate the brush truck itself, which is about a $150,000 piece, and go with a ATV type vehicle, a 6-wheel ATV that we can use in the woods with a small skid tank in the back to extinguish brush fires if we need to, as well as have a med bed on that, so that our cross-country team, they're in the woods practicing all the time now, up in the lake area, the conservation trails. We have hikers up in Oak Hill. We've had to call the Westford ATVs on several occasions to come and assist us with removing victims from the woods that break an ankle, twist an ankle, break a leg. This would allow us the ability to do all that and have a multifunctional vehicle that would probably last about 20 years. And along with that would be to put a small skid tank in the back of one of our existing pickup trucks. And that also, to take off-road for some of the small brush fires. Additionally, we're looking for a deputy's vehicle. If we were able to do the brush vehicles, that would take the pickup truck that he's currently using and be housed in the station with the tank. And we'd be looking for an SUV. like the Ford Interceptor, similar to what I have right now. And that way it allows us to continue our responses right, from home to back up the full-time staff. And lastly is the upgrade on thermal imaging cameras.
Okay.
All these
Fly towards the
items
edge.
Important,
are-
thank you.
all these items are what are reflected in this budget?
Correct.
Chief?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before you leave, Scott,
No? Cemetery? Oh, yeah, sorry.
Before you leave, what's happening with the proposal for the fire station?
So, the fire station.
Oh, that.
Sorry, that was a long.
Oh, that.
Let's not forget that.
Oh, that.
Just a small item.
So we've had several meetings with all the abutters, open meetings with the residents, and received excellent feedback. So for the preliminary design, we've come to a pretty satisfactory building. Reduced space, changed it a bit to fit the site the best. So what we're looking at is, with some discussions, if we could, hopefully go forward with that and design in 2016 and the construction in 2017. If is still, I know we talked about it briefly on a few occasions, that, when debt service falls off, that would be the time to do it. This would actually be key as we're looking for the new apparatus. Our ladder truck will be coming up next year, and that's a big ticket item, and we're looking at the future of this community with everything in the Point, the hotel, these garden-style apartments going up at 15 Great Road. It may be another ladder truck, it may be a tower truck, which is the one with the bucket on the front.
Maybe that's where the mitigation money should be going. I think that's how the first one was purchased, was with digital money.
Yep. And, that's something that we're checking out all of the options right now, want to make an educated decision on that.
Well, will those machines, trucks even fit in your current building? That's the other issue, right?
Yes, that's correct. If we were looking at a tower type of a vehicle, it may not fit in the existing building. So that's where it'll be kind of critical with the new facility moving forward. And, when that ladder truck, if it were to by the time it's received, the old one will be 30 years old. So it's definitely, we've gotten a good life out of it. And,
We're talking, you're projecting that to be about $1.5 million, right?
probably a little bit less, 1.2, yeah, ballpark, yes. On the high side, 1.5, yes.
if I may, one of the things that, there's a grant called the Assistance to Firefighters Grant the government put out, and we're presently in the process of seeking funds for another item. Well, yesterday in a webinar, they announced for the first time that aerials are available, aerial ladder trucks, and are available on a regional grant. And I had mentioned to the chief yesterday, something to explore would be to talk to the towns of Harvard and Boxborough and say, would you be interested in going in on a grant? And I'm throwing it out there because, like we talked with the police chief, there's grants available. We're competing with 20,000 fire departments across the country. This is the first year they had a regional grant for a ladder type truck, and they used to have specifics. You can only buy this type of ladder truck. They've since removed that. The issue becomes we could do all this legwork with the other towns, and next year the government says either they're not funding the grant or that's not available. But it is something that we can look at, and we are exploring that for certain items. You can't get this grant for a building. They stopped doing that because they built some pretty big ones when this came out after 9/11, and they since ceased that. But vehicles, anything operational, our SCBAs are coming up, and these are all things that we look to explore, but they're extremely competitive, and they're also, the government is level funding that grant program now, and that makes it even tougher each year. So you're based on a score, and if that score is high, you bode well, but it's something that we're looking at in addition to just saying we need 1.2 million from the town.
Yeah, I think sharing some of those trucks that you wouldn't use that often anyway makes sense, doesn't it? Okay.
Yeah, we're investigating that,
Okay.
definitely. But
Wonderful.
back to the station, that would be a key item, and especially as staffing grows. I mean, right now, we're using the trailer out back, that is the living quarters, and we also have office space in that for an additional 4. So it's definitely getting used as we've expanded the space.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief.
All right, thank you.
Sorry to get off schedule, but important.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Morning.
Here we are once again. Police and fire don't do their jobs properly. We have the cemetery up. That's right.
I've always said I'll be the last to let you down.
I like
A lot of people
Big
down.
business for you, yeah, that's fun.
Well, what would you like to know? We're doing the level funding staffing, and we've had very little increases. We are running into a bit of an issue with maintaining our funding level. It's been an increasing trend where people are going to cremations versus burials now, and it has really started to affect our income. We've recently had a meeting with the commissioners, and we're looking into raising fees to try to maintain the level of income that we've had in the past. We're working on that issue, but right now the percentages of cremations versus full burials are up to about 67%. And it's an increasing thing. So
67% being the cremation.
cremation,
Yeah.
yes, versus full burials. And for a cremation, we don't hardly make any income. It's mostly, and one of the other biggest things is the sales of the lots. We're not selling many lots now because you can put more than one cremation in a grave. So people are buying one grave and putting more cremations in it, which is also affecting our revenue. So it's an issue we have to look at, and we're addressing it.
What is the sentiment of the commissioners? I mean, number one, they
Not-
understand the problem.
It hasn't been well received, shall I say. They're afraid of raising the prices. To maintain the, I used last year's figures as comparison.
Yep.
And as of last year, with the amount of burials and cremations to what we've done this year, we would have lost $13,000 just in the difference of cremations versus burials. And to maintain that level staffing, the amounts that we would have to go up, they feel is too high all at once. So they're probably going to initiate a gradual increase over the years. I don't know, I'd like to see.
Do they have a schedule to address this, or is this?
No, I just presented the information to them, and they're going to think about it and
Okay.
get back to me, so. Other than that, things are pretty much the same. We've had slight increases in payroll, only due to step increases. I think Bonnie said it's like $367. Oh, no, wait a minute, I'm on the wrong page.
It is.
Oh, it is? Okay, good. So it's been minor increases, and it'll be the same going forward. We do have some capital issue planning things that I'd like to discuss. I am asking to replace one of our lawnmowers. We were awarded money last year, the year before last, for a new Walker lawnmower to replace the Toro mowers we have. We find out it didn't work out well, and I found a different one is most suitable, and we put all three of the mowers together as a comparison, and the one I want does what we want. I contacted a dealer, and we could trade in the fairly new mower that we got last year and purchase this new one, and that would be like $4,900. The longer we wait on that, the less the trade-in value will be. So I think it's a good thing to get that thing done now. And the reason why we're doing this is because the one mower that we normally use constantly is no longer made. That model doesn't exist anymore, so we have to be looking for something that will do the job that these mowers do, and this new one is the closest thing we found. So I'd like to try to do that this year. In putting together the capital plan, we've had the HVAC system on our capital plan since 2011 to be replaced. We've never done it. And in putting the plan together, I was trying to get a figure on what it would cost. And in doing this, I had a local company review the unit as it is, and that unit is like 18 to 19 years old. They don't make that unit anymore. So the issue would be to replace it totally, which would mean cutting into the roof and putting a new mounting curb on it, or taking an adapter and put on the old one. But that would raise the machine up another 18 inches and it'll look pretty much an eyesore. The problem being is we're in the middle of having the roof redone, and I'm not sure where that stands right now. It's an ongoing process. But in my opinion, it would be better to put this new HAV system in first and then fold the new roof up to it versus cutting the new roof and patching it back together. So it's...
You working with the PMBC on that, are you?
No, I was just trying to see if we could get some funding on it. On the original budget, I did find out it was earmarked for $25,000 to do that. It comes out, actually, we could have a high-efficiency unit for about $9,000 installed. But with the way Massachusetts laws are, I put down for $15,000. So I think that's something that we should do before we do the roof. We've had an emergency repair on the roof last year, and it solved all the leaks. So the roof is holding, and I can't imagine putting on a new roof and then cutting up and putting in a heating unit. And they say that this unit is good for about one more year. It's not like saying, well, we'll let that go for another 5 years. We've let it go for many years now.
First step is you need to catch that to PMBC, though?
Yeah, but I had to start someplace, and then gather, the important part of this is finding out that you can't just plop another machine on it to do it right. You could, but you'd have that an adapter, which would put the machine way up in the air and look stupid. So we need to get right down to the roof.
Okay.
So that's one thing. John Deere backhoe, that is quite old, and it's on the capital plan to be replaced in 2016, I think it was, or maybe. Yeah, 2016. I contacted a John Deere dealer and had him come out and see what it costs to refurbish the machine versus replacing it. And to refurbish it, it would be $31,000. And it's getting to the point where it needs something pretty soon or trade it in. And on the capital plan, it was always there for $85,000. Well, that was figures from way back when. That same machine would be around $120,000 now. So either refurbish it for 31 or replace it for 120.
How many years is the last one you refurbished, you think?
John Deere's are very dependable, and they went through the whole thing, soup to nuts. Cost me $780 to have a look at it. And I think it would last another 10 years without any problem.
Especially with activity going down too,
Yeah.
right? I mean, less
Right,
burials.
right,
yeah.
yeah.
Now, does the 31K include rental of a
Yes,
unit
it
or?
includes picking up and taking back
Okay, so that's.
rental for
Okay.
a given amount of time. I haven't put it in, that they can't take it and keep it for 6 weeks, and we pay rental on it. There's a given amount of time it would be mechanically gone through and painted. It'll look like a brand-new machine, so. It's kind of all come together at once because we kind of ignored a lot of these things over the years and let them slip. I think it's time to.
What year is that, John Deere, do you know?
That's really hard to figure out. They don't really go by years, but they figured it was a 1996, roughly around there. I mean, you can take the serial numbers and go through it. We just didn't bother. We just know it needs work.
That's a machine that's worth fixing.
Yeah.
If we step back to the mower replacement
Mhm.
that you're requesting, the $4,900
Right.
is if we do this in May or June? Or
Yeah,
$4,900 is if we do it today and it's 5,000 or 6,000?
Unfortunately, the mowing season is over,
Right,
and mowers aren't available right now.
okay.
So we would have to go with the 2015 model versus the 2014 model.
Yep.
I tried to see if we could actually purchase the demonstrator model for the 2014 price, but somebody had already bought that, so we have to look at the 2015 model. And the original cost for it is $15,400, and they're giving us the $8,500 for the one we want to trade in. So there might be a marginal cost in 2015. They haven't got the 2015 prices yet. He said it could either go up or down, but I doubt it'll go down.
Right.
So we'd have to come up with $4,778.
Okay, so if this goes through at the annual town meeting,
Mhm.
you wouldn't be able to buy this until July
July,
1st?
right, correct.
And that's
That's
okay within?
on that price, yes.
what you're-
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So that's about
Okay.
all that I'm asking for.
So I just got a comment. I think the crematory study committee that was done a couple of years, 5 years ago, they're trending to, is correct in saying how the crematory is
Exactly.
actually elevated. Maybe that's something that the town should revisit at some point too. You know?
I know the commissioners are pretty well disgusted with it.
Yeah.
I mean, they put in a lot of time, a lot of effort. And the whole problem with that is the surrounding neighbors were the only ones that went to town meeting to say no. I know there were a lot of people in favor of it, and if we had had that in there, we wouldn't have this roof issue, we wouldn't have the HAV system,
A better revenue stream.
we'd have revenue, and I wouldn't be sitting here begging for money.
It's something that I think the Board of Selectmen should take up at in some of our discussions too.
I'd love to see it go in.
So.
It,
You gotta find someone to chair that committee.
I remember a guy that did a great job on it.
Go for the man with experience.
Yeah, I mean, you know.
It didn't get past that.
They've even come out with different ways of cremation too,
Yeah.
which,
I heard.
Different ways?
yeah. I mean, that sounds a little more scary than,
I mean, based on what you're telling us here, I think it'd be, something the town and us as executives of the town to take a hard look at.
Right, I mean, the
It is.
industry certainly is changing. I mean,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The public will too. I mean, that's expressed by what they're choosing, that's what the public wants.
exactly. That's why we looked at it, to be in it.
Sure.
I did a 4-year study over it, and in the 4 years, this has been the most dramatic increase this year, 67%. But the last 4 years, it's been slowly creeping up. And,
The only thing we found in the study that we did, there was a stigma.
Exactly.
Attached, because every place we went, we must have went to 2 or 3 or more,
Yep.
the crematories and how they function, and you don't even notice that they're there. Mount Auburn is, people go there to have walks, and they're walking right by it, and they don't even know it's
Yep,
there.
exactly.
Well, this is about leadership. I mean, who's thinking about a crematorium? You've laid out a situation now where, what was it, 60-something% difference in the desire to have it. So,
Right.
as you talk about public will, this is part of education, you know, this is a very sensitive topic.
That's what, we were kind of flabbergasted that people didn't go.
Right.
But, as I said, we knew of a lot of people in town that were in favor for it, but didn't go to vote. And that's the apathy of town meeting.
Seen that
If
recently.
somebody's against it, they all show up. If somebody's for it, oh yeah, they'll vote it in, they'll vote it. And they didn't vote it in. So,
Great.
Thank you very much.
okay, well, thank you.
Cable has volunteered to let John go first.
Okay.
Oh, we can't go there.
They're here anyway, so
Yeah,
they can go in when they are.
I'm gonna leave anyhow, because I gotta catch a plane. Huh?
What time are we leaving?
Soon.
Not soon enough.
Right. I'm hanging tight now to park the car. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Welcome, thank you.
Thank you.
Betsy, what number are we looking at?
16.
Level staffing is fine, you know, it's just myself, so right now, but I think in the future, we're gonna have to start looking to increase it a little bit, because time-wise, to investigate everything is increasing. I'm getting more and more new people coming in, so it just takes more time. But that's, you know, down the road, I'm just trying to put, and also the other thing is training. They're, by next October, we're supposed to be certified, and I found out 2 weeks ago that I've got 3 more trainings to go to between now and then, which I didn't budget for, but still, and 2 of them are supposed to be down the Cape, so it's just that type of thing, but,
In the off-season.
pardon?
In the off-season.
One's in February, one's in June.
Money gets to go to one in June.
So that'll be good. But that's basically what I'm trying, you know, I didn't even have that in my 16 budget because I didn't know about it. So that's something that I got to think about. The other thing is that the monthly expenses have really gone up as far as benefits go, paying out. And I know we get a lot of that back, but that's not until the following year and stuff like that. But so that's, you know, I'm already at, through November, I'm at $46,000 out of my $70,000 increased budget for this year, so you can tell where it is.
Kind of my question on that line, that, you know, the mission budget goes up, but is that really a mission budget, or is that really a reality budget? I mean, we know we're going to hit it anyway, right?
It's more of a reality budget, yeah.
You're going to have to, asking for a transfer anyway.
Right. It is, really.
Because it's not like you're going to say, no, we're going to spend it, right?
Right.
There's no, it's not.
I don't have a
it's not
choice.
possible, exactly.
We don't have a choice. It just has to be done, and it just,
But what we don't know is whether that's a short-term
right.
cost.
Most of the ones that I have I've got 8 elderly people that are constant, you know, but I've also got 4 younger ones that, those are the more expensive ones, because one of them has a family, and, you know, one gets over $2,000 a month.
These are mostly economically driven.
Unless he finds a job, you know, and he's trying, and I can't fault him for that. He had a temporary one, so I didn't have to pay him for October, but he's back on, you know, off of that one. So that's just, and he, you know, he's out searching, and it's hard. He's got a slight handicap because he can't lift anything, so, you know, there's that type of thing. So it's hard. But I got a couple other ones that are younger ones too that are in the same boat. These
are things we weren't confronted with several years ago.
Right, these things.
With the downturn in the economy
Yeah.
and veterans coming back
Right.
who can't find a job.
Yeah.
And those those do get expensive because
they
they
do.
go on for month after month.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if they have a family, because you get a couple of kids involved and stuff like that, so it increases their allotment up.
It
The
also-
elderly are all on fixed income, and they either only get medical benefits or they get a very small, what we call ordinary benefit fee, so. I'm sorry, Alan. you were
That's
gonna
right.
say
You said what I was going to say.
Okay, sorry.
Study-
Anybody got?
Study that came out last week, I'm sure you saw it, or I caught my eye anyway, that the projections, I don't know, actually, over the next 25 years, the number of veterans is going to drop dramatically because of the World War II career
We're a
in
little-
Vietnam, but the intensity of services needed by the remaining ones is
Correct.
a lot different than what the
Right,
others.
we're losing about 300,000 veterans a year now for the next 4 or 5 years because of that, because of the system now is that the reserves and the National Guard go in 3 or 4 times as opposed to a whole bunch going in at once and staying a long time. So it makes a big difference. So we'll be dropping to about, I think they're projecting it out to 2030 or something like that, then it starts increasing a little bit again. But, yeah, so.
This might be a question for Bonnie or you, I'm not sure which, but the state, if the state is reimbursing us for some percentage, with all the other cuts that the state or federal government has been making, do you see any pressure on this percentage, or is it still good?
It's still at 75% as far as I know, and I don't think it will go below it unless, we've got a very strong
Certainly,
support up there in the legislature right now for that, which is good. And I think a lot of it's mandated by the statutes too, but we're doing good.
Good, good.
To be fair, John,
Yes.
you're not projecting any increase in the veterans agent salary. I know that when I was the veterans agent, when I took over some 7, 8, 9 years ago,
Yeah.
we increased it, but there hasn't been an increase since. But I know there's been a hell of an increase in workload.
Right. It is, but I mean, hour-wise, it's still the same, but it's been a lot of work. Most of it, what I'm required to work for you is the 3 hours in the office, but there's a lot of it, when I have new cases, it's the investigation, or finding out, making sure that they're telling me all the right information. That takes time, and that's not in that 6 hours.
I used to do a lot of off-hours.
Right, you do a lot.
I didn't have
And the
the
training,
caseload
too,
that
is a lot
you
of
have
off-hours
today.
work.
So-
It's all off-hours work.
We can have the personnel board look at.
I think we should.
I wouldn't be against it. Be appreciative. But that's, anything else? Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Safe
Thank
travels.
Thank you. I'll take you go out down the floor.
No, you won't.
Thank you, boss.
Thank you.
That was Steve?
8. Thank you for that, by the way, that flexibility, by the way. Thank
No
you.
problem. I'm here for the day.
All right.
So, basically, we're looking at a level-funded budget for FY16. And right now, we have no capital expenditures planned, but, most of our equipment is new. And the only thing that's really on our radar is, coincides with the police station. If they should ever build a new one, we would like to outfit a
Fire station.
Sorry, fire station. Just make sure you guys are listening.
Chief Wazinski would appreciate it.
Yeah.
Notice the chief left just before you mentioned that.
Anyway, we would do a room similar to this with the robotic cameras and be able to hold live events there as well, so that, just another opportunity to have a live meeting place for people to hold meetings or fire events or whatever. I don't know, does anybody have any questions? I don't really have a lot to say.
I should point out,
Fire department question that you raised, would that be soft cost you proposed with the fire station budget itself, or from LCTV?
LCTV.
the entire cable budget, including fringe benefits, is offset by the cable fees that are received. So this is a neutral general fund budget.
Talk a little bit about the transfer to general fund and how is that determined? I was trying to figure out, one, is it like salaries plus benefits down here, but then I looked at other years and that didn't work, so what?
It's salaries, benefits, any capital expense that they might
Okay.
have.
Those other things
So
that you've
health
expended
insurance.
on their behalf.
Yeah, we actually
Okay.
do the actual calculation on what we need to capture.
It functions as a town department as opposed to a nonprofit, so everything goes through Bonnie. She treats all the financial stuff with us the same as she would as any other department in town.
But that change was as of, what, about 3 years ago or so, something like that?
Well, 2 years ago.
2 or 3 years ago, when the
Yeah.
Comcast contract ended and we had to make a policy decision about how to provide the cable service, or the studio service, that we decided to go with the town department, which I think has been
Works
a
great.
fantastic success. It's great having that facility available. It's a dedicated staff of full-time people and volunteers to put out a quality product. It's consistently timely. It's often there online the next morning. And it's just, I think that LCTV has just done a great job.
I love buzzing through the meetings to get to the good part.
Your part, you mean?
Oh, no. What are you talking about, Mark?
We have a way of tracking those things.
I know you do, I've seen those trackings. Big brother's watching, huh? Okay.
Okay.
I didn't know we tracked all that
You guys
stuff.
back on schedule.
Yeah, put you back on schedule?
You guys back on
thank you.
schedule.
You're
Thank you for
welcome.
that.
Yeah.
Just remember, folks, that this all comes because we have the dedicated revenue from Comcast and Verizon. So don't be canceling your subscription and going to some other way to get it.
Correct.
And that's a point well taken, because as the industry shifts from cable to services that are available online, as Netflix or other, HBO's is going to have an online version, and you may see to some degree, some shift from people who decide not to subscribe to cable and instead just to go to an online service. And we don't capture, the way the law's written now, we don't capture any fees.
Any revenue from that at all.
Probably the same people are getting cremated.
Well,
Correlation is that?
the trend is we have not seen a downward trend in our funding. In fact, it increases or slightly every year, and that's mostly because the cable companies have raised their rates. But
Get net neutrality, though. Can we thank you for getting us on schedule. Can we take a couple-minute break then? Come back at 10:30, please? I'm going to anyway. How's that?
There you go.
I gotta get some more coffee. I gotta do something first.
It's huge.
So I'll ask you to introduce yourselves as well. Please.
Yeah, who's this guy here?
Yeah, that guy we know. You can still introduce yourself. There are people on TV that may not know you.
Mark Rambacher, I'm the chair of the trustees.
I'm Sam Alvarez, I'm the new director of the library.
I'm Helen
Thank you.
Graham. I'm Helen Graham, I'm a senior librarian, and I've been there for 9 years.
Sam started Wednesday.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Put him on the.
There we go.
So let's grill him.
Absolutely, you're in trouble.
I just told Sam that because he started on Wednesday, that's why we put up the new sign for the library on Wednesday.
We allowed him to
See you again.
we gave him permission to skip town meeting since he.
Sure.
So I just wanted to talk about the library a little bit and what we're looking for. So the library is really an information resource for everybody in town. We're really looking to strengthen our community involvement with the town, especially since I've started now. That's really one of my goals, is to really increase our presence in the community and to really increase programming, just make the library a place that's indispensable to the community. So to start, I guess I'll just go over the mission budget. We're looking for really just a difference of $2,000 in the capital gain, an increase of $2,000. Since I started, there's...
That's the capital budget, right? That's $2,000.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's to replace old furniture.
And
Bonnie, what number is this one?
17.
17.
Thank you.
so for wages, we're going to be open 6 hours, an additional 6 hours on Fridays versus previous years. Excuse me if I refer to my notes, like I said, it's only my birthday. These hours were added in the level budget. However, we're operating on skeleton crew at the moment, so we're looking to increase programming on Fridays. It's for kids especially. Getting kids into the library, as you all know, is really important to us and that we feel to the community as well. Getting them in early increases their learning. Studies have shown that kids who come to the library are really, it's beneficial to them in their future educational careers and work careers. This brings us back to level staffing. Approximately 4,500 of this money will allow us to restore Friday programming, which will bring us back to level staffing when we were cut in 2009, and allows us to provide programming in the children and YA departments. We are also so to add to this budget would be a mere $3,000 and return us to 2009 levels of staffing. For equipment and repairs, we're using money to cover expenses related to equipment maintenance, repair, things like that, to replace furniture and for a disc cleaning machine. We're looking to increase our processing and office supply budget so that we can use that money to cover our books, to buy the supplies that we need. At the moment, we're using
We beg, borrow, and steal office
Right.
supplies at the moment. Last year, we ran out of paper. Staples had some great deals. We put things out on Facebook to say, please buy paper for the library. We were inundated with paper. That's how we survived our printing budget. However, we have other, it just causes a different problem. We have a toner problem, and Staples doesn't put toner on sale for free. So we've been operating way under budget for the office supplies for many, many years. And this just brings us up to a closer semblance of reality. It doesn't actually hit reality, but
Right, we still, recently at the last Friends meeting, we ran out of covering material, and I had to ask them for $300 to cover children's books, because every other department, their office supplies are your paper clips, your staplers. In the library, we're preparing material to be lent to the public. That's a whole different gamut, and it's not books anymore. It's DVDs, it's books on CD. So the case to buy a book on CD is $6 if someone destroys the case. So now all of a sudden, that mere $1,300, when you have, 500 books on CD in circulation, gets eaten up really rapidly.
Bonnie, it almost seems like there ought to be a different category for their office supplies, because they're not office supplies. They're
It's
work
part of our
materials, right?
materials.
Right.
Yeah.
anyway, something to think about. It doesn't change the number, but
Yeah.
it just makes it easier to read than looking at why would your office supplies go up by. So you're talking to the mission budget. You're saying the $3,500 wouldn't even cover your needs on that.
No, the 2,500 we feel for office supplies in the mission budget would bring us closer. On our mission budget, correct me if I'm wrong, but it says 25.
I see
You're looking at
35.
Maybe we added
You're looking at
that by
travel.
another- Okay. No, that would definitely cover us, because within that, you know, there's Gambit, there's books on CD, there's labeling for the DVDs. We haven't purchased barcodes, believe it or not, in a while. That will have to be sent out and done. We now do our own truss plates in-house, but we still need to buy all the labels for the truss plates and create them, and toner. So that's a good thing. And if I could just speak back for 1 second on the YA, for $3,000 in our wages, we can provide a consistent YA program. There isn't much for young adults who are not athletes in town. This allows a place for everyone to come, not just, you know, the wealthy, the not wealthy. The library's a common ground for those teens. And we have YA programming right now, but what happens is it's intermittent because we can't afford to fund it consistently. And with teens, there, you know, if you don't do it regularly on that early release day or that consistent time, you lose your audience. So if we could do it consistently, it becomes then a common place where teens can meet. And there's no boundaries. It's not, you know, I'm the music person, I'm the sports person. No, you're just coming to the library and reaping the benefits of it.
So the increase in the salaries assistants that you show here, that's primarily for that?
That's primarily for that, and that's also to put Diane back in the children's room every other Friday to provide programming. When we were cut in 2009, we had to, we closed on Fridays in July and August, if you remember, and then we were open 10 to 1 on Fridays during the year. That didn't allow for Diane, who was cut, to do programming on Fridays. There went Itsy Bitsy Yoga, there went Toddler Story Times. Those programs could not take place on Fridays. And for moms with little kids, Friday mornings, a lot of them work and maybe have Fridays off or whatever, it gives them that time to network. And those, as we all know, those relationships you make when you bring your kids when they're little are the ones that you continue into elementary school, to middle school, to high school. So it's a real good starting point, and that cut hurt us terribly. So it's short money to provide a lot of bang for your buck. It really is.
So to expand on that a little more, when we were cut in 2009, we closed the library an additional 5 hours a week. Since then, we've added those 5 hours back without asking for any extra money. Now, some of those hours were fairly easy to add back, but the Fridays were tough, right? And we're open on Fridays, but we're operating on a skeletal crew right now, and the extra money will help actually operate fully staffed.
Right, the doors are open, but let me tell you, we have usually 3 people, possibly 4. Someone goes to lunch. If someone is out sick, we don't have the money to backfill that position for that day because you're paying for that sick. So we run really short. And as far as morale for staff, I think that's difficult. You can do it to pinch it. You can't ask someone to do it continually. So.
How is your attendance for the young adults when you're doing constant programming?
We don't have the ability to do constant and consistent programming. When we do run programs on the early release, we're seeing anywhere between 6 and 10 kids. I think we could build on that number quite a bit if we were consistent. If it wasn't, you know, the week James could do it because he's not working a Saturday, we can keep the payroll under this amount. So being able to provide it on a consistent, regular basis draws more teens in. So it's a place of growth. And the funding is what limits our growth. And the Fridays operating on a skeleton crew allows us to have the doors open, maybe not answer your reference question that has to come, you know, we have to say to you, we'll get back to you. Maybe not being, the doors are open, you can check books in and out, but we can't provide you the service that the staff would like to provide people. So.
To add, we haven't really had the regular young adult programming, but our adult programming has been very successful that we've been running lately. And that's fairly recent that we've
Archer
only
Mayer
been
was
doing.
50 people, yeah.
What was?
Archer Mayer, he's the mystery author, he's from Vermont, he's a medical examiner, and he writes from a lot of his own perspective and experience, and he has quite a big following, so we had quite a big turnout for that. You know, the draw is there, it's having the staff to do it. And especially in a downturn economy, we're free. With your tax dollars.
Any questions? Obviously, everybody feels, I think the library's quite a feather in the town's cap, so.
Operationally, good job and compelling argument. Curious where things stand with the space needs study?
Well, Bonnie can speak a little bit to that. We have the money, we're waiting for bids and things from it.
Okay.
We're in the PMPC process at the moment. It's dragging very slowly at the moment, but I think it's all
A lot of balls in the air right now.
Yeah, okay, I just figured that would be something that
we're still
be due for an update.
we're still working on the project and still hoping to be in the next round of grant money from the state. So.
Great, good luck.
What is the actual, I know you went through it here, but I couldn't really pull out, what's the actual cost of this children's program that you're asking for? And like, how much more is this?
It's about $4,500. We'll put Diane in the children's room every other Friday. And then we're asking for another $3,000 for James. And then you're going to see, the figures will not be exactly right, because there's 10 hours in there for our lowest paid person to be able to fill for lunches on Fridays and for vacation.
Okay,
So
you're
the
looking
total
for-
around $10,000.
It's about $10,000.
And that addresses young adult and children?
That addresses young adult, children's, and our page position. Yep,
But in your mission budget, the salaries goes up 20,000.
correct, correct. There's,
Step raises?
there's step raises,
But no, this is the mission though, the mission from the level.
Oh, let me, can you open the book?
Which spreadsheet are you looking at for that one?
It's like this.
It's a 7%, I think, increase.
You're on it.
Are you looking at the first line item?
Yeah.
The salaries assistants,
Okay.
While she's looking that up, I'd like to also add that we're trying to get a better accounting on how much the library actually spends, because we get a lot of gift money, we get money from the friends and things that it doesn't appear before you guys at all, right? And people don't really realize how much the friends and the contributions.
That'd actually be very helpful knowing that what, a couple of departments are in similar situations,
Okay.
but especially if it's so
Okay.
big a part of your spending
No, there
program,
is
to
not.
know that the town's
It's my hours
piece is
also.
just that, a piece of it.
Yeah, we're trying to get that information and figure out the best way of presenting it too, so people are aware. Because the library does not operate solely on this budget, and we wouldn't survive on it.
Right, this is just simply a component of what you're getting.
Right, when I'm looking at this right now, I'm looking at, there's four individuals with hour increases. The amount, when it's total, comes to approximately $20,000. You'll, if you look at our bottom line item, it's 445, but you have to take that out, so it's 442,000 at the bottom. Are we on the same page?
Yep.
Yep. And then our previous one was 420,000, I thought. Yep. So it's a $20,000.
Okay, I see the 442, where's the 445?
It's 440, it's 442, 445,
42.
yep, 42. So it's about a 20,000 when you increase those, when you put those, and it's all wages, basically, because, and a little increase in library materials, which we discussed really isn't materials, it's, so.
okay, so we understand, that's good. Anything else? Anything else you want to share with us?
Welcome
Thank
aboard.
you, thank you, welcome.
Thank you.
Baptism
You
by
have some
fire.
big shoes to fill. Thank you all.
Bonnie, should I leave this just here?
Where's the leaf in there?
Look at this.
Bonnie, what's the next one?
Park and Rec.
What number?
I don't know, somebody else knew.
18.
Where'd he go?
Wow. Yeah, she was just flipping it.
Yeah, that's right, I did. It was a short timer, that's right, I forgot that. 18, it looks like.
He's back.
Torn hip labrum.
Life is a jock, huh?
Assessors rate jackets like that?
Talk to Bonnie about that, so people beat us up in the street. It is nice. That's why I don't come to the assessors budget stuff, you have my jacket.
Jackets right out of there.
As a sidebar, we had over 200 runners at the turkey trot this morning, so, yeah, it went really well.
Some people are running,
Yeah, it was really, really cool.
And we're still cold.
And we're still cold, yeah, no injuries, just volunteer injuries.
Before you start, I don't think we've met.
I'm Fred Freund, I'm chairman this year.
Look at me. No. Some penance, we pass it around.
And because I won't be coming, I'm also chairman of the Board of Assessors, but I don't come to that when Bonnie doesn't invite me.
Nice. And now you know why.
You're very welcome.
Try to get disinvited to this as well. So,
okay.
Kate will have to be my eyes because I don't have my glasses and I literally can't read this. But we presented to you guys a level service budget this year. We did not do level funded because if we try to go level funding, the cuts in
So would you like an
services.
extra pair of glasses? That might help.
Well, yeah, the odds of that.
If you want to try these.
Oh my God, no. I'll be hitting my forehead on the microphone with those on.
Okay.
So, again, we've been through it. If we try to present a level funded budget, the cuts in service and staff would be tremendous. We'd end up cutting beach hours, free programs, scholarships. We've got so much overhead or operational costs packed into this. I think, what, Kate, $44,000 just in sort of office costs alone that we're trying to cover that are typically picked up elsewhere. So we don't run any programs that don't pay for themselves. We do have events that are typically free for people. We try to make it more of a community feel to our department. So that's where we're at right now. We just decided to try and stay with level services. Even with level services, we've cut back beach hours somewhat.
Well, this indicates that you're cutting all kinds of, the Halloween parade and other things also.
Right, those are some of the free events. We're cutting back on some of the scholarship funding that we were doing in the past. Some of the, for lack of a
That's
better
to
word.
get to the number that we're asking for, which still isn't level funding, because we felt that it was best to show that we're trying to meet in the middle. So we're able to reduce some of our, some of our costs, but we wouldn't get rid of programming that's breaking even. So the only thing that we have to really play with is staff hours, free events, and things that we give away for free, which are essentially scholarships. And
I guess I'm just not, and just help me, I'm not being negative here, just trying to get through this and trying to understand how, from one year to the next, so a pretty significant increase we're asking for, and cutting a lot of programs also, cutting a lot of things too. So what's the big change from one year to the next?
Well, it's been building. It's
Yeah.
definitely not a change.
Yeah, it's been building year to year. Look at our table. Okay, right there.
This one here?
No.
This one here?
No, next, let's table, please.
Oh, okay, with
That-
the graph.
That's a snapshot as
Yep.
to, raise fees to pay for our overhead costs, okay? Raise fees to pay for staff, raise fees, et cetera, et cetera. That's what we've been doing. Take a look at what the trend is.
Okay, we've reached that point now where people are not participating as much because the fees have now gone to a point
Yeah.
where they're dropping off. So we're
In
not
addition
making.
to that, yeah, we have some costs that were borne to us that we had no say in, and the big ticket items are the personnel items.
Salaries, yeah.
Yep.
But one of the largest things, and I think this is, I mean, we brought this up at our hearing last year as well, is that when the salary schedule went into effect and those raises were made retroactive, there was an article that was presented that had that as money that was gonna go in to pay for all of those raises, but that didn't include the park and rec raises. So what that was a sum that was taken from our fund balance, which at the time we had, and, you know, so we had been saying it's gonna come to the point where we're gonna run out of, you know, money that's left in the fund balance. And so we're gonna have to say, here are the things that we need to cut, in addition to increasing the appropriation. And so this is that year.
Over
Do we
the past
know-
couple of years, you've been drawing down your
Correct.
revolving fund balance.
Yeah,
Right.
but I mean, I've been very, and I mean, we were here last year too, saying this is gonna happen.
Right.
There's gonna be a year that, and the first year that I said that was in 2010. And then I came back 11, 12, 13. So when you open it and you say you're cutting and
But you're cutting programming, right?
we're cutting free
Yeah,
programming.
not staffing.
Yes, we are.
You are.
Yeah.
We're cutting staff hours, yeah.
Part of the issue is some of the rates we've had to pay have been,
Well, just take driver's ed, for example.
ed,
The
yeah.
coordinator gets paid, you know, almost $30 an hour, which in our area is $9 an hour more than,
But that program was proposed as being self-sufficient.
it was when the coordinator was paid $20 an hour.
when we were paying market rate.
Market rate.
When
Then maybe it's a business you shouldn't be in.
No.
That's part of the
That's
discussion.
part of
they're-
the
what they're
discussion, we
looking
have
at.
that in here.
I mean,
Cut that out.
again,
Yep.
what's our mission? If our mission is to cover all of our operational costs and everything else, that changes the whole dynamic. What are we presenting to the community as a whole? If you take away the Halloween parade and you take away I forget what we call it.
Touch a truck.
Bunny, yeah,
that
and the
was a-
bunny.
Easter bunny.
Yeah, well, I don't think we're supposed to say Easter,
yeah,
so
yeah.
whatever that is. But
Spring.
you start taking those
Yeah.
things away and strictly run to paid-to-play programs, that changes our mission and everything else. And the driver's ed thing was not, we had market rates, and then we were told, no, you have to pay this. The same
Right.
thing with, at town meeting a couple years ago, we had presented, based on our survey of surrounding communities, fees for the summer camp workers and the beach personnel. And somebody got up and said, I don't think that's right, you need to pay them more. And we ended up throwing our whole budget out of whack, and it's,
And we cut the beach hours to be able to make up what the difference was, and then there was.
It's just hard to
people who were
imagine that
just-
the Halloween parade and the Easter Bunny are the cause of the problem, so that's, cutting them seems more punitive than it does a budget
well, but
solution
no, but if
here.
we have to cut staff hours, and we've
Yeah.
got programs that are paying for themselves, then we have to look at, well, we don't want to have staff here for an event that there's no revenue production.
I mean, you have a very lengthy document that took the commission and my department a really long time to be able to justify every single thing that I wrote in there. So it's not the Easter Bunny, and, I mean, every penny I accounted for in this document. It should be clear to see
Yeah, okay.
how we
Although,
got to this, and
but I think
it isn't those two
the
events that you
directive, I
just
think, from the
mentioned.
finance director was, which everybody else complied with, was to have a level funding and a mission budget, and that's not what you came back with. I mean, it's a thorough document, no doubt, but, just by the same point, it's not, we're not allowed to make the same comparative basis here with other departments. All the other departments are following that format, so.
Yeah, part of the problem though, Paul, is that it changes our mission. And if that's what the town wants us to do, so be it. I mean, if that's what you want us to do is change the mission, we'll change our mission. But it's not what we have today.
The current
And
mission
we
says that
need-
people get access to it no matter if they have an ability to pay or not.
The other thing with regards to changing the mission, and I've been saying this for for at least 10 years is fine, but tell us. We want the people assembled here to say, that's not what Park and Rec should be doing. We want you to just run some programs, and whoever's willing to pay gets to participate, and otherwise it's out. But we can't go on, and we've been doing this at least, you were on the board before me, so I've been on for 15 years or something now. It's been the same story, is, well, you gotta cut, you gotta do this, fine, but tell us what you expect from us, then don't just say, here's what you have, and make do. And because it comes back to us. I'm the one that takes the calls, I'm sorry, Betsy, and Kate and Ivan, why do I have to pay for this? I pay my taxes, and then try to explain it. No, it's a separate fee, and if you want to do this, you've got to pay for it. And but somebody's got to make that direction official. It can't be this.
So my question is, in general, do you think things are just changing? That maybe some of the programs and then what people are looking for is different than it used to be? I mean, is that it? You really believe it's all costs, that the cost goes up, people don't come?
Well, some of these costs remain the same, like 2009 to 10, you know, it remained at $130, and yet it still went down. $5 increase from 11 to 12 translated to a 13% increase. So it doesn't make sense that it's cost. $5 translates to a 13% decrease.
Well, what happens is, you know, you have to look at it as a regional aspect, okay? When Littleton, we've always been known that we offer excellent programs, competitive rates. When you look at looking at the surrounding communities, when we start to price ourselves at or above the surrounding communities, people go with their wallet. And if they have 4 kids in programs or a couple kids over 4-6 weeks during the summer, it adds up.
So even in the case where we're level lined, like retaining the same cost, it's still not good enough, and we're still losing people. So even there, you're saying that we're just too high.
It's the programs, it's the fees, on top of that, it's everything, because we're hitting them for not only, Park and Rec fee, participate in the program fee.
Right.
So.
I guess what I'm getting at is you shared the data here, but what am I supposed to walk away from it? That, are you asking for additional money so you can reduce these costs even more to the consumer or to the resident? You want to bring the cost of camp down per kid?
No, we're looking to get the amount of money that we asked for to take care of costs for things that aren't associated with programmings, including my position, some of the assistant director position, some things for fringe benefits, and some of the overhead that aren't tied to any specific programming. In the example of camp, for example, we would keep that cost at, what the market will bear, what we feel is reasonable for people. And then, of course, there are people who are on sliding scales regarding scholarships or things of that nature, and pay all of the expenses that are associated with that.
Right.
But we cannot raise fees for summer camp to be able to sustain the full-time director's position.
Those, currently, the spending in the current operating budget, town's contribution to cover those things that are not by fees is what, 192,000?
No, 102. We're asking for 198.
Oh, 100, okay. No.
It's 102, we're asking for 198.
So you're looking for about a 50% increase?
100% increase.
Yes.
100%, excuse me, 100% increase.
That would be 204. Little
Close
bit.
to it. 90% increase.
But sort of a side question here, the driver's ed, you said, is not paying for itself.
Well, it is now.
It is
yeah.
now.
But it's not paying any of the non-program costs.
But it's not going to
Not
pay
paying the
for
overhead.
the director of the department.
Right.
But it never was designed to.
Right.
Well, it depends
So
on
it's not paying
how you
for
look at
itself.
it.
Well, it had to be
What-
designed to, because
Yeah.
that's
My
where your
position
revolving
isn't
funds come from.
Tied, I would think it isn't tied to driver's ed,
Right.
depending on how.
Look at the analogy.
All of recreation is tied to your
Yeah, but the
positions.
analogy is this, I'll throw this out, the transfer station, okay? Collect fees to pay for those staff. Do those fees pay Jimmy's salary?
No,
Okay.
But they were never intended.
they were never intended
Well,
to.
why, what we're telling
Driver's
you
Ed, at the
is,
time of its inception, my salary was paid for through the town.
Even
so-
before
Yeah.
Driver's Ed, the mission was to fund the staff positions out of the revolving funds from the various accounts. And
Well,
there's been a-
let me say this. Some years ago, the Finance Committee recommended to the town and to the rec department that we wanted them to move to zero money from town, or practically zero, and fund themselves through their programs. At the time we did that, they had a healthy balance in their revolving funds. They had all kinds of programs that were going, that were paying for themselves, plus paying for some staff. At that time, we were paying for the director's salary. Park and Rec was not paying benefits. They were being paid for through the town. That's a healthy bunch of money. Then on top of that, through the Personnel Board, because of federal regulations, all these people that they used to do at market rate, part-timers in the driver's ed, community education, all that stuff, more than the salaries were reasonable, and they could handle it through their revolving fund. But now, all of those people are on the salary grid. They all get 3.5% step increases every year. Part-timers, all of them do. They weren't getting that back in those days. And still, we require them to keep raising the fees on all their programs so that the revolving fund can pay for Kate's salary, most of everything for the other two are full-time members. It's just not working, guys. You can't get there from here. So something has got to change.
And to add to that.
My suggestion to you is that we do exactly what Kate is asking for. That those overhead people, the full-timers that coordinate all these programs, that we do something about paying for that. You can't keep raising fees because then we're just losing customers. The more customers you lose, no matter how we raise the fees, you get less money. So something's got to change, and those are the dynamics that have changed since the time we said we want you guys to pay for yourselves, and now. 90% of it was not Park and Rec's doing, it was us.
Some of that I agree with Alan, but the truth is that the salaries for that department have grown significantly over that same time period. And that's, maybe that's what the market is at right now, but, we track the costs and program costs have gone up, blah, blah, blah. There haven't been much inflation affecting things, but I'll accept that there's been program increases. But it's that big chunk of it that I can understand why it's harder and harder for the programs through their revenues to support that, because it's a bigger nut than it was 10 years ago.
And that's because we used to be able to have people work at the after-school program, say, under a temporary status, and now the laws have changed.
I'm sure that's part of it.
Well,
that's
it's
a great
major part
the
of it.
huge part of it, because
Yeah.
I can't have people work under a seasonal or temporary designation unless they exactly meet, it's the law. But that wasn't the way that it was looked upon. They were able to work during the school year, 20, 25 hours for the after-school programs. We were able to use the teachers, the school teachers. Now we can't because they would have to be special municipal employees. So
But
there's
that's
a
all
lot
within the
that's
past, year and a half that changes take place?
the last 5 years.
Yeah.
That
3
it's
years
been
on that,
creeping,
yeah.
that it's been creeping, for sure. And so all of those things changed because it was someone that used to say, okay, they're gonna work 6 hours after school, and they're not gonna work in the summer because school is out, and then, they were paid from a temp salary, or they were paid $10 an hour, and now they're on Schedule A and entitled to all of the benefits of Schedule A, which is fine. I mean, I don't think that employees should not be treated the way that they should be treated, but there's a cost associated to that, just like the Tigers Den employees, for example, are part of the school's, whole operation. It wasn't the case years ago when you were looking at the subsidy for the town, and so now it is. So it's just a different a different animal, and I would hope that it's worth some reconsideration.
It seems these costs are where they're at.
Okay. Alex was trying to get in there, I'm sorry, Paul.
Well, I wanted to add on to what Alan said, is that, you know, much of this was driven by more enforcement of the federal laws and other laws that say how we have to treat these intermittent part-time, temporary part-time people. But there also was an attempt by Park and Rec to reduce the salaries where they could, and that was defeated. And you know, we could go back and try to visit that again, but you know, town meeting made their choice on that. So I understand where you're going here, and I happen to agree that if you know, if half these programs went away, would we still have your position? The answer is yes. And if the answer is yes to that, then we as a town have an obligation, because we want to provide that service to this town, whatever that is. Having said all that, there's a lot of moving parts in what you have here. And it's hard for me to understand all of it. And I've been, you know, on the personnel side, I've been really involved in it. And so I think I get why everybody's going, what's going on here? You need to find a way to boil it down so it's easier to pick out each piece of that. And maybe part of that is identifying the actual core mission. You know, what would happen no matter what? If 80% of the program shut down, what would we still have to pay for? And then go from there as the part that the town would be obligated to fund, and then build programs on top of that.
Builds on, I guess, some of the previous conversation already when you talk about statutory and regulatory requirements. Is it possible to say, or at least illustrate what it had been, and then everything else all being equal, and the statutory regulatory requirements have increased the cost this much? That at least, now, there's a delta that we have no control over, and that's put aside. Now that we look at everything else that we do have some controls over, and then make some management decisions based on that. Is that a possibility?
You've got the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, I guess,
So 5
I
years
guess I
ago.
thought that information was already in.
You talked about that a lot in here.
In your possession.
It's hard, I mean,
And
it's
as
a
far
lot of
as
prose, it's a lot of prose to roll through and read as opposed to in a
It's
in a
almost
And
like
as
one
far as
single
the
spreadsheet.
breakdown of each, I mean,
Well,
this is
here's
where
what I'm
you're.
thinking, a simple breakdown in one spreadsheet where we had 45 employees 5 years ago, and the costs were whatever. Statutory regulatory requirements over the change of these last 5 years has brought that same 40 employees to cost us this much now.
And that would include also the added benefits that we have to pay now.
Whatever it
All
takes,
that.
that's,
Okay.
the statutes and the regulations that now have caused, and even if it's some of our own policies that have caused that increase in salaries, that way it takes it all off the board as far as whether you're right or wrong about anything. Or, everybody could quibble over the numbers, but that comes pretty objective, I believe, in saying, this is something you as a manager in your department had no control over. It was imposed upon you. So get that off the table so you're not fighting that battle. And if that's a bad choice of words, I apologize. Or at least you don't have to worry about justifying it to the folks in at this table here and the rest of the town. It's presented as, this is fact. Now here's what we've had some control over, and here's what we're trying to do better at.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea. That would help, and that would help your pay. It would make it easier for people, because it's hard. Again, a wonk like me might go through and actually read all these paragraphs, but not everybody will. So it's there. The other thing that I would just ask is do you regularly, or how do you get feedback on what programs people want and need? Because that's the other thing. Like, is there a 5-year plan? Like, are things just changing? The town's changing some. The economic shift of where people are, what they're looking for, what they need. I mean, do we keep a real close pulse on that and kind of have a plan going out about maybe we need to offer different things or have different mode for some of this stuff?
Usually what we do is put out, feelers after programming and say, is this the type of programming that you like, and is there something else that you want to see? We're kind of at the mercy of, someone may say that they want to take a class on XYZ, but if we don't have someone that can teach
there's no
that.
guarantees, but.
So it's kind of a different animal, and getting people to teach the classes and make that commitment is equally as a challenge, as challenging as putting them on. So I would say that, we have well over 100 different kinds of, continuing education and youth enrichment and in all of our brochures. I mean, if there's some area that interests you, we probably have at least 1 or 2 classes for that. The big things that we hear from people is that they need things during the times where school isn't in session. And we've tried to fill that. And one of the other things, a while ago is that there were things that used to be people in their school districts would be able to get driver's ed, for example, and it was very expensive, and we thought that we would be able to do it for less, and so we thought that was a service, and that's kind of where that was born from. So I don't think that there's any formal, needs assessment that we've ever done, just because it's been cost prohibitive, but.
Just look at this graph, from 100% capacity to 36%. It just seems that's got to be more than fees. I mean,
Well,
that's what I
here,
look at,
I'll give you a
okay?
perfect example that is only one snapshot of sports camps. But one example in my own life, because I can speak to that, is we ran a flag football camp here. I registered both my sons for it. It was $178 for the week. It didn't run because they didn't get enough kids. So I ended up Googling flag football camp because they really wanted to go. There was one in the town next door to mine for $135. It was at capacity. Same exact company. So I thought, if I'm gonna be in the area, I was only gonna go because I'm here and that's my commitment to here and, great. But it was literally right next door to me for significantly less, and I only live 12 miles down the road.
But there's a flag football consortium in town. There's a league in town that's run, so that may have impacted your
What do you
your
mean?
issue.
It's not a camp, it's a league.
No, it's a league though, so.
But it's not a camp.
That
This
doesn't,
is
no,
a
no, the
different-
summer.
This is summer.
Summer.
Right.
Summertime. It's finding a place for kids while parents are working. And, we run the soccer camps, there's all the youth sports for soccer, et cetera, and all those other sports, those fill up.
Yeah, it's 8:30 to
Right.
3:30 camp.
Yeah.
An alternative to having your child be at home or hiring a babysitter that may or may not be more expensive than paying that in a given week. It's not the league. And some of it, for the most part, for our summer programming like that, it's people who need care. I think that if you're looking for a horseback riding and those kind of things, clearly we're not in that market. So I'm very aware, and my department's very aware of what our market is. And our market is to try to get something that it isn't daycare. There's a camp aspect, there's a learning aspect, and part of what we want to do is that you don't stop learning because school's out. Whether you're learning in a sport or continuing education or any of those things, the learning is continuing.
So how can somebody run a program at 135 and we can only run a program at 165 or 75, whatever the other?
So what
number is?
happened in the past-
Why do we
Yeah.
advertise it at that difference? if it's
Well,
the
we're
same
trying,
company?
because we're trying to make money on top of
We had to add
what
a
the-
20% versus $5.
We have to, yeah.
So
We have to pay
Clinton
our own
Park and Rec
costs.
is the place I was talking about. So Clinton Park and Rec ran this particular camp with this same company, and all they did was tack on $5. So we tacked on 20% because we needed to take in more money than what the program was going to cost because we needed to pay for things that weren't associated necessarily with that program.
If you looked at the budget for Park and Rec in Clinton, was it?
Yes.
I bet you'll find that Park and Rec is heavily subsidized by the town budget.
Oh, do we know?
Do we know that?
Yes, because I was on their hiring committee for their director. And so their director and assistant director are both paid through the tax levy.
But we're not profit centers. This is not a business. This is a service. So, I don't want to be in competition with somebody, with the neighboring town, just because they're driving us out of this. If, I looked at the chart, if the people don't want to participate in that activity, well, then that's fine. Why do we sustain something that's not desired? I mean, we're supposed to be agile as a.
Well, we don't run programs, as Kate said, if we don't get enough people to register for, we don't run the program.
And that
We
should
don't-
be fine.
Yeah, that's,
Do you do an active feedback? Do you do a hard feedback on all your programs? And I'll use, my business as example. We 100% of the firefighters we run through my program have to feedback, as well as the person who signs the authorization to pay for it. And that shapes the program. And we've made a lot of adjustments in the program because every single person that participates in the program obviously aren't going to have a 5-year-old kid do a feedback. But do you have a way of getting direct feedback so that it's actually solid information based on somebody's, this is what I saw, this is what I felt, I thought it was too much money, or I thought it was an incomplete program, or
Yes,
whatever?
yes.
You do that.
But I think
Yes.
even more important is to get feedback from people who aren't sending their kids to the programs. What programs are they going to and why? Because it may be the town has shifted and some more people are paying for horseback riding lessons, if they have the money and they're willing to do that. And so if that's the case, and we need to think about what market is this serving or what we need to do this, we need to understand that. We just want to know. So that might, if we could do that somehow, get some feedback. If people aren't going to these programs, where are they going and why?
I mean, we send out surveys several times a year that say, what do you want to see? If you're not participating, what is the reason you're not participating?
Yeah.
But people aren't sending them back. They're
Yeah.
not required.
Yeah.
May I offer this? I think we're going beyond the scope of
Okay,
today's
all right, I
program.
guess that's fair. Yeah,
We're
that's
talking
fair.
about their business model,
Yeah,
their
well, but-
management techniques and stuff. I think we're at a point,
Yeah.
at first blush, they presented that to us, and maybe,
We'll
a
have to
joint
follow
meeting.
up on this, yeah.
A joint meeting later on,
Yeah.
specifically designed, where we put 30, 45 minutes together on
Yeah.
a schedule to go through some of
Okay.
these things so we understand better.
Yep.
Down to where the $100,000 comes from, that's all. At the end of the day.
Right,
that's what
that's
it
true,
comes out to.
that's true. Okay, but thank you, I thank you for all the work and for putting up with our discussions and so on and addressing us. Thank you very much.
Obviously, see you again.
Get a league where we can play basketball in?
that's the spirit. We had to do it.
What's that, the Duffers?
Men's basketball done, all the old guys quit.
I tried to study, but I couldn't.
Yeah, that's fine.
And the baby, every time I read it,
Fine with what?
like.
You sit back there?
Standing
Pop
up
pops up there ready, but
Come on
you guys
up.
ready for school?
We're ready for school.
There's the
Cool
bell,
for school.
School's in session.
What he's gonna present.
School's in session, that's right, school's in session.
So last session, you want to give me a preview.
This will be my first time in the
I'm gonna have a tab for you. Maybe you're in here someplace, I don't think there's any information. I think there's a tab for it, wasn't there? No?
Uptick in.
No tab?
Expenses always fluctuate.
Education.
Education is,
That was cool. It's a trick question. See, it's an SAT question, when you find it.
What's the synonym for school?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, they're the largest one.
right, I get.
So this,
Right, it's just capital, not much here. All right.
Oh, I didn't, well, no, we're gonna do that too. We're gonna get together next couple of weeks. We'll see if they've got it.
Okay, they got it. Got your name on it back there. All right.
I was feeling a little self-conscious coming, looking this informally, and then I saw Jimmy and I felt a lot better.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks. Actually, you shouldn't. That's a great shirt right there.
I put this
Big
one on
win last week.
specifically.
It was
Yeah.
outstanding.
Sometimes I wear my basketball one. I made a conscious decision to put the football one on.
Outstanding.
Already got a couple comments running around about what a great win it was last night.
Do we know who we're playing next?
No, that game's getting played this afternoon. It's Turner's Falls, who we played last year, and a tech school out in the western part of the state, McCann Tech.
Okay.
So they're playing this afternoon, other coaching staffs.
Where's the next game gonna be, like in Worcester or
It
something?
is Saturday at Leominster High School, and it's one of those
Turf field?
days, yeah, I think it's a turf field.
Oh, this is nice.
It's one of those days where they're gonna play 4 games. I think we're the first game. It's gonna be like 11 a.m. start.
Somebody fill in Jim on what
Oh, you
Blew up?
I'm sure, I was updating it every.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so you got something in front of you that we don't have,
Yeah,
right?
so, These are just our notes. Our budget subcommittee has been working on coming up with our initial budget request. We will be talking about this and informally putting it out there at our next school committee meeting, which is Thursday. What we're looking at, obviously, are always our biggest drivers. Our salary increases, we're projecting at $550,000. That's all the steps and lanes, and the percent increase for all our teachers and our other staff. We are projecting sped increases of around $400,000. The $550 for the salary increases, that's a number that we can always look at that and have a pretty good handle on that, and we know what it's going to be. The sped increase, obviously, that's more variable, $400,000. That's a lot more, probably 50%, 100% more than we would have thought it was going to be. But things are changing. We have children coming into the district that are already on IEP plans to put them out of district. They're coming from one community to ours, and we have to deal with that. And we do have some, we've already had some increases from what we budgeted for this year because kids have moved into the district after the year started. We're okay with that. We have our revolving funds. It's not going to require anything extra from the town or anything along those lines. But it is money that has to get added back into the budget for next year in order to maintain the operating budget the way we expect it to. We do have some increase in our case collaborative fees. That's, so those new students coming in, the case fees. We do have some students aging out, so even though it's $400,000, it could have been more, but we do have some students aging out, so we will get some savings on that. Those are the things that we know we have to do. We do have some monies that we're asking for things that we feel we need to do. It's not it would be nice to do it. We actually feel that this is necessary. We need to add a couple of staff, probably one at the high school and one at Russell Street. Our numbers are up. We are, depending on who you ask, we are out of alignment with the contract in terms of the ratio of students to teachers. We're still working with the LEA on making sure that we all agree how that number gets calculated. But even if we're not over, we're right at it. And at Russell Street, we have more kids coming into the building, and due to the staff reductions that we had a couple years ago, we knew that we were going to get some pressure, that we're going to have to add something back at some point, and we feel that this is the time to do that. So that's about $100,000 that we're looking to add to the budget. There are some additional curriculum materials for reading and writing programs that we have, K through 5. That's about $50,000. I would call those textbooks in the old days, but it's not. It is some textbooks, but it's also software and other things like that go along with that. But that's more of a, supplies and materials rather than, it's not staffing, it's supplies and materials for those particular programs. The other thing that we're looking to get an additional increase for is $30,000 for what's called Chapter 222. That is the program where if a student is out of the building for some reason, often it's for suspensions, but it could be for medical reasons, not a special ed child that needs an out-of-district placement, but they're just out of school for a while because they can't come to school because of whatever it is. We have to provide services to any child that's out of the building, and we have ways of doing it, but again, this becomes evolving. There's more software. You can Skype the children into the classroom and do things like that. So they're looking to beef up the infrastructure for that program, and the additional increase they need for that is around $30,000.
What was that, how much, ballpark?
$30,000, for that Chapter 222.
Yep.
So adding all those items up, the initial increase that we're looking at, that we're starting to get our arms around, is about $1.1 million. What we haven't done yet, but we will before Thursday, and we will have a document for Thursday that we will then give to everybody, FinCom's, Board of Selectmen, put on our website and things like that, is our analysis of the revolving funds, primarily school choice and circuit breaker. We know they're comfortable, there's no surprises in that, but it's just getting the last dollars added up so that we can project what we're going to spend out of circuit breaker, what we have in reserve for school choice, and then we can all start to talk about, well, how comfortable are we about how reliant we're going to be on those funds, what kind of impact, circuit breaker, because we've all agreed now that we're going to spend it year in and year out down to zero. We just have to look at the timing of the payments and how much the reimbursement's going to be, and then we can put that number out there. And it might go up a little bit. We might spend more out of circuit breaker than we did last year because we have more and we need to, and it'll go out the door like it's supposed to. But we haven't finalized those numbers yet, but we're in the midst of doing it, and we should have it fairly soon. So my point being that, $1.1 million is the initial increase that we're looking for, but we haven't really started to think about how we're going to pay for that from our end, much less from working with the town appropriation and all the rest of it.
What percentage of that?
It's about 6.5 5%, I think is what the one I looked at, and we'll have it again on when we do our presentation on Thursday, we'll have that mapped out. But it's definitely over 6, not 7, over 6. Just can't remember the point what.
Mike and I did have a chance to have a conversation, so we previewed some of this with me, but Peter and I mean, Mike and a fuller team, I guess after Thursday's school committee meeting, because
Right.
what he's previewing to us today hasn't even been formally.
Correct.
adopted
This
by
is
your
just a
committee.
budget subcommittee.
Right.
And I haven't even shared this with the other members that aren't on the budget subcommittee yet, so they know it's coming on Thursday, and it'll be in their packet and things like that. So, yeah, we need to have that discussion, because we may get feedback from them, that we'll see what they have to say about that.
So I can put this perspective, like the salaries when they go up from like last year to this year or the next year, is that, what is it, about 3%?
Yeah, usually somewhere like 3.5%.
So to bring it up to the 6%, is that the sped increase?
It's the sped increase and those additional staffing that we're asking for.
So the additional manpower.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, yeah.
So when can we get some detail on what's going on in the school department?
Thursday.
Because, you know, you're always mentioning your up and down, you know, staff and this, you know, you talk about enrollment, you're talking about circuit breaker, all this sort of stuff. I mean, when can we actually see that on paper?
Thursday. I thought I was fairly clear about that, all the material will go to the school committee first. That's scheduled for Thursday. When we distribute it to the school committee at large, it'll get distributed to the finance committee and the board of selectmen. And then, like Paul said, we'll sit down with Peter and Paul with the budget subcommittee, and then they can bring back everything that we have.
So we're gonna be able to see some history, so that when we talk about positions, you're down, positions like this is what you were in 14, 15, 16, so that we can see whether you're down positions or up
Typically,
positions.
the materials that we use are budget materials that have dollars on them. We don't typically show the head count back and forth. If there's specific questions, we can certainly answer them, and we certainly have that information. It's never really, we've never put it, you know, $550,000 is for, you know, 123.5. I mean, we could, but we haven't, and we could say, you know, 123.5, and we could show a graph that's, you know, shows up and down where we were 126 or 132 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, we just haven't done that before.
I mean, wouldn't that be beneficial for you as well as everyone else in town to see what's going on with the
I
school department? as
I
opposed
don't
to-
find it particularly edifying to me, because I'm more concerned about the actual number. You know, we're contractually obligated to pay these people. If we hire them and we put them on the scale, we don't have any discretion about what we pay them. It depends on what their experience level is. So saying that we have X number of dollars to pay across, you know, Y number of people, I mean, I could see, if you have a question, if you're worried that our staffing level is too high based on what we're trying to do, then ask the question and we'll get the information and we'll figure it out. I don't particularly think it's all that meaningful when I'm looking at the budget. I assume that my assumption is that the administration is going to take the salary number and hire the appropriate number of people to do what they need to do, and that they're not going to ask for more people just because they like to hire people and keep
Right.
people employed.
Right. Well,
They're hiring people because they have to meet specific needs relative to what we're trying to do.
Right.
And we're running, you know, we have been running very close to, we're not comfortable, we're okay with the numbers that we have in terms of the number of people we have in the buildings. We would like more, as every district in the state would probably argue is the
To the
case.
specific point, you're gonna be providing documents of the packet for us, for everybody, next
Yep.
Thursday or after next Thursday, and if we take a look at that and see that there's some background stuff that we would like to see included, we can just request it.
That's what yeah, exactly. That's really my point. It's difficult for me to anticipate what anybody would like to see, because if I asked all of you separately, what do you want to see, I would get 1, 2, 3, 4, that many different answers. So I think that would be good, is if you have a specific question, we can, and we think it's relevant, and it's going to help us make a decision, no problem. But trying to anticipate all of that, I think, would be,
I think we all could agree, we'd all want one thing, which would be like budget detail, because when you look at the schools, you're hands down the largest department in town. You're talking about a $1.1 million increase for 16, and all the other departments in town are submitting detail when you're the largest department in town, we have nothing, and you're talking...
you have nothing today, Chris.
Well,
You
I'm
have
just saying,
nothing today.
the past history, and it sounds like going forward, there's, I mean, what are we gonna hand out, a couple pieces of paper of, this is steps and lanes, and we want $550,000 here, and we got sped, you know, we want this much and that much. I mean, where's the detail for it, though? That's what I'm saying, is...
Chris, on the
I ought-
FTE, It's an easy number to look at. If year is 120, the next year is 125, 123, and, you know, whatever it may oscillate at. And you think you can make some management decisions based on that. But as Mike said, some of this is designed as to what are the specific needs, and the needs do change a little bit year to year.
Right.
And then the 125, any number, the FTE, did a PhD retire, and we replaced with a B1.
Right, and that's
for
another
example.
category, retirement
So that
savings.
FTE, everything else being equal, the salary number goes down.
Right.
So the FTEs just told you nothing.
Right, but I'm not second guessing any of the decisions they're making. I'm just saying for something for us to visualize is
But
going
I
to
think
help
Mike
us
said
along the
Thursday when
process.
they present to their committee.
Right,
and
well,
it's
I'm
public
just
for the
saying,
rest of
from what's been submitted in the past, and, I mean, hopefully we're going towards some more transparency, but I'm just saying what's been passed out in the past, which was, you know, they've done a couple slides to say, you know, where they are with the schools and those sort of things.
Let's see
I'm
what we
just
get
saying-
Thursday.
Yeah, I'm just
And then
saying.
we'll figure out the follow-up is.
And offer what you
Detail is
received in the past
beneficial.
was pretty good.
Actually, I would offer that
I don't
more
know-
than
I
a
don't know if
couple
I
of
agree with
slides,
that.
but we'll leave it at that for now.
Exactly where we're going.
Well,
All right,
undoubtedly,
talk-
we have some follow-up, you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
and we look forward to that,
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
you know, we'll probably have some asks
Right.
above and beyond
Do you want
that.
to talk about capital in a minute and a half, or?
It's up to
wanna
you.
wait-
I mean,
wait till after
I think that the
get
most
rest of it?
important thing to know about the capital is, from our point of view, is we haven't even prioritized this list yet. This is just a very broad requirement that needs to be met over some period of time. We certainly don't expect that this is going to be the list that goes to the warrant. And we have a process that we need to finish on that, too. We've gone through the first
We'll
steps.
prioritize.
Exactly, and that'll be part of the discussions that we have, you know.
Pretty soon, though, Mike, I mean, considering that
Yes,
the other departments is
absolutely.
already
Yeah,
in, so
yeah,
we want
yeah.
to make sure you're in the same cycle, or as
Yeah.
much as possible, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Great.
definitely.
The way I understood what you just shared with us, sir, is we're looking at a $1.1 million delta, step increases, 2 new people, a SPED, and a Chapter 222 translates to, to that increase.
Correct. And on a summary
it may not
basis,
be
that's
one-
exactly right.
And it may not be 1.1 because you haven't.
It might, right, it might not be
All the budget.
1.1 against the appropriation.
Right.
It'd be 1.1 against the operating budget if we get there, but we still have to figure out how much that's just, the majority of it will be against the appropriation, because we don't have a lot of play left in our revolving. But, you know, it won't be more than that, it should be somewhat less than that. The question that we have to work around is how much less, and then, even then, it's can we meet that as a
And
town?
The capital list is a
Thank you
separate
for that.
subject.
Yeah.
And it sounds like we don't have too many points to flex here. It is just, this sounds like it's just coming out the way
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. I mean, one thing, I almost forgot to mention this, and I don't want to, we don't have to go into detail about this, but one thing that we have talked about is, because when you phrase it like that, it reminded me, the problem with the SPED is, it's effectively an assessment to us. You know, we don't have any discretion about, other than how we put the kids into services. Once the IEP is drawn up, we can determine, can we do this in the case? Can we do it in the building, or does it have to go out of district? But specifically, the out of districts are an assessment to us. You know, we don't get to negotiate with the vendors or the providers, it's all done at the
Can't manage
state
the
level.
cost, you hand it
Exactly,
over, right?
you know. So one thing we could conceivably think about is taking that out of the operating budget and doing it as an assessment akin to what we would do for Neshoba Valley Tech, which is a similar in terms of the way it works. You know, as a school department, we don't have discretion on that, so while it's education, it's not on our operating budget. And it may help us get our arms around what is truly driving up our operating budget on the things that staffing and other things that we have discretion on versus another very big piece of the pie that is just something we have to pay for. Just something we're throwing out there. We've only talked about it once at school committee, and we didn't really even attempt to reach a consensus on whether it's a good idea and how manageable it is, but we probably will try to talk about it a little more, and then that's something that we couldn't do without, you know, consulting with you guys as well.
For
Think about-
capital, you're approximately $750,000 you're looking for.
On this list, we're not, no, we gotta prioritize
Okay.
it. I mean, yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah,
But
I'll take that.
I'm not expecting it, all of it.
Pay for it out of the football.
None of us is.
All right. I
Okay.
just want to know what your going in is, and we'll wait.
Yeah, and I think what I would like to, and what I think we've done in the past is, we'll show you the whole list on a priority basis, and with maybe some lines of demarcation about what we really feel is important for this year, what we feel really needs to be done in the short term, whether it's this year or not, and then other stuff that we can live with.
Kinda what you've
on
done the past
On a
few
longer
years.
term basis.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Anybody
Very
else
much, Mike.
down there? Okay.
It's all good.
Thank you
Enjoy
very
the
much.
rest of your day.
Look forward to getting the details.
Good luck with the laundry, Jim.
Thanks, Mike.
Do we have anything? noticed some of the people signed in.
We're right on schedule, we're not, right? 11:30? I went to 11:30, right?
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Clerk and IT. Diane is actually at a training seminar today. Nancy's at a hockey game.
What name, what tab are we on?
You're on 5.
5, okay, tab 5, team here. Call the plays here, number 5.
Thank you.
Say a lot more.
Hey, I wanted to see the clerk. Where's the clerk?
The clerk is in training today, so she's...
Okay,
So, again, Diane is not available. She's at a training seminar. I sat down with her this week just to kind of go through the budget and get the highlights of items that, she was concerned about and things that she's not concerned about. So, please bear with me. Basically, she has submitted a level staffing budget request for both mission and the level staffing budget. She's not looking for any increases. The only thing that would be applicable would be a step increase that are due to both her and her staff. Although she is elected, she does follow the same salary schedule that was adopted for the bylaw employees. She kind of sticks to that. She doesn't go out and look for anything different. And she does have a part-time staff person there that she shares with the collector. It's about 15 hours a week in the clerk's office and 15 hours a week for the collector. So that is the only increase in this budget scenario that she's looking for. The things that could come up that might change this would be additional elections, additional town meetings. She typically budgets for 2 a year. That's typically what we stick to. She did mention that while she is not looking to change her hours for next year, she's at 35 hours a week. She said maybe in fiscal 17 it might be something that she would look to go to 40 hours a week, just because of the nature of the workload that's
Is
increasing.
Becky's retirement coming up during this cycle, and do you expect any change in that?
Yeah, I was going to cover that in the collector's budget, but yeah, she's retiring this year, so. It would not affect the town clerk's budget, though, Becky's retiring. She did mention that she's not looking for any capital requests this year. She did some vault work for preserving the documents that she stores downstairs through the CPC the previous year. She did mention that, the system is in good shape now. However, storage, the amount of storage is always an issue, and she's concerned that she might be running out of room in the next few years and need to seek some additional space. But it's not in the 16 budget, maybe 17 or 18. Other than that, she didn't have any other major concerns.
okay.
Okay?
Sorry. I'm talking a piece of paper.
So Nancy's also running around today with her children. She's got hockey games that she's
No,
split
I
the
found
whole
it.
day.
Next one is number 4.
Thank you.
I've tried before going through it as they're talking. I'd rather look them in the eyes and look that stuff
Okay,
up later.
section 4, IT.
Right. So Nancy's budget is also, the level staffing would just be, for her position, it's 40 hours a week, full-time IT director. In her mission budget, she would be looking to add a part-time computer technician position for about 15 hours a week, which would be non-benefit eligible. Nancy's had a lot of change in her workload in the last few years. We did add 10 hours to her position last year. However, she's also taken on the duties that were previously assumed by the Light and Water Department for police and fire. So she spends a lot of time running between buildings. She covers the library's IT needs, the town hall, police and fire, highway, pretty much everybody in town
I
hall.
was going to ask, is there any of that that's done now by LELD or Light and Water? No?
Just Light and Water takes care of.
Take care of their own, because
Light and
there
Water.
was quite a share for a while, right?
There was, yes.
Okay, none at all, except for that.
I mean, they do back each other up,
Right.
as needed, and they work very closely
But in terms of
together.
regular work, no, they're independent.
So she.
But the salary line on the IT, it's only going up $400 on 90 grand?
Yeah, she's at top step at this point.
Okay.
So the only difference is really, there's 52.4 weeks
instead of 52.2, so that's the,
Okay.
that's the increase.
Thank you.
Thank you. In her expense budget, she covers all of the licensing needs for all of the software applications. So IMC for police and fire, she covers my software licenses, she covers pretty much everything. Department of Elder and Human Services. So much of that is sort of fixed at whatever the license renewal cost is. She also covers toner costs and general equipment replacement schedules for the computers and the laptops and any of the tablets that need to be replaced throughout the fiscal year. I almost look at her budget as a fixed cost and from an accounting perspective, because we do have to pay these services to keep our systems up and running. The one item that she is really requesting is just kind of a review of maybe part-time staff coming in to assist her.
How many, this is more an operational question than a budget question, because, you know, a number of entities want to use the website more, do more on it, and that involves interaction with her. And, you know, if she's going to have her time to do her own thing, but what, are you comfortable that that's working well? I mean, even our own board, you know, we've had some talk about having more stuff up and running online, you know, there's possibilities of having real-time things on there, and then I know economic development, they're looking to have more updatable, interactive stuff on there, but the more creative people get, the more demands on her time there is. What are your thoughts on
I think
managing
she's
that?
terribly overwhelmed with
Right.
a lot of that stuff.
Right.
She spends...
But that problem's probably not gonna go away. Everybody wants to use the website more and more, you know, and have more access to it.
She spends, you know, most of her time literally running between buildings.
Right.
So to get some quality time with her, to do any type of training or, you know, looking at the website and planning, you know, future...
Changing pages and all.
That's just,
Yeah,
it's...
so it ends up being that each department, to say, I was paying attention, but I was also updating information on the website that had happened in the last
Right.
week now, and,
Yep.
you know, you find time to do it, or else it doesn't get done, but it is, the departments are updating their own websites for the most part. So those without staff, you know, if there's a committee without a dedicated staff
Right.
person, then that's where, I mean, I suppose the answer would be that, that committee should come to my office and we'll figure out.
Okay.
If it's not Nancy, who else could it be? Because I agree with Bonnie that we're, you know, very sympathetic about Nancy's workload
Sure.
and not, you know, she's already overloaded, but, you know, we'll be glad to work with individual committees and figure out a way to.
The website's great and getting better, and people are getting more and more focused on using it, and, you know, you got limited resources, so we just gotta figure out a way to solve that problem.
Just a minor question, just curious. Number of VPN users going up from 6 to 20 projected?
Yeah, we have a lot of remote login use. I use it a
Right.
lot.
Right.
And I think that there are more every year getting access, because it makes people...
Just in general, just more account
Yeah.
people are just expecting to do the work.
Makes
the
it more
workers
efficient.
yeah. You know, work on a snow day and so on.
It's the only way we get access to our desktops when we're away.
I just logged in. Let's go.
So this
Okay.
budget represents pretty much Nancy staying at her salary.
Right.
A small increase plus one 15-hour assistant.
Correct.
Okay.
Do you want to, if we're done with that, you want to quickly do the last one? The finance and budget one, and move that up now?
Absolutely.
I can do that.
Absolutely. As many as you can do.
Paul, for that one goes, credit for that one goes to
Who
Paul.
else are you covering?
I'm covering,
Last
I
year
think,
this time we called
conservation.
out to Pam Campbell.
That's right. You get good question.
You want to,
You want to jump to finance?
Yep.
Sure.
I have one question before we go there, Bonnie. When do you see the need to upgrade that second position to more hours? I mean, Paul identified the biggest problem. You know, it's reactive now to the load that's there. But, you know, years ago, we were in the reactive mode and we fell way behind.
Right.
We need to have enough resources to keep some proactiveness. So when do you see that needing to occur?
Probably the year after. I think that once people realize that there's somebody there to assist them with this type of stuff, they're gonna go to that person. Right now, they're used to not being able to find Nancy because you have to put a tracking beacon on her to try and figure out what building she's in. And she's always, you know, immediately available to help if you just pick up the phone. But I think when somebody, if you put somebody in the position, it will get utilized tremendously. So I would say that the following year, you're gonna see.
I sort of view this as sort of like legal counsel, something you gotta have. And the costs go up and you just sort of go, well, okay, gotta have it. And we're probably approaching that point here.
You know what would be interesting to see is like we have the capital budget going out, like people plans. You know, the fire department expects more, and the police, to have that for people, just have, we know it's gonna change and so on, but to have some idea of the slots in here, when we're expecting those hits.
Yeah, I can
Okay.
actually, from this.
You could do that, right, I know, it would be interesting just to put it all together, just because
kind of put them
we're
out.
gonna get another discussion too about the, should we be funding the OPEB up front for these people, you know, that
Yep.
discussion of the policy and other things like that.
Yep.
Because that's obviously our driver, so that
No,
would be.
I can do that.
Okay.
Bonnie, we
Thank
do
you.
get some technical help from people on the senior work-off program, right?
Correct.
Some
Correct. She
people,
does.
they're available for Nancy to use to go out and do scut work, you know, setting up computers and plugging them in and hauling stuff around. So we do get, she does have some
She
help.
does. She's got a good resource there, but it's at their convenience.
That's
often.
right.
That's the
It's not
difference,
her
right?
convenience.
Yeah.
But just so
That's
people
good, no,
understand, it's
that they're-
not poor Nancy trying to get everything done.
Right, and then we are using all the resources available, you
Yep.
know, all the different avenues that we have. Yeah, very good.
Seniors are willing to come
Okay.
in to help.
Okay,
Tab 3?
I'll start with accounting. My department, one of my departments, my home, I should say. I'm, again, just looking for a level staffing budget, even in both versions, in my mission budget also. I think we can handle, you know, the workload for the accounting area at the staffing level that we have. I do have a full-time, 30-hour-a-week assistant who does most of the data entry and the processing for the weekly warrants. The increase for wages would be about 3.58%, which just incorporates the step increases. The expense budget would be level funded. This primarily covers any training that's needed for other department, postage for mailing the checks out, dues and subscriptions for the accounting association expenses. And my largest expense is the audit, the annual audit, and that's a fixed one for the next year or two. With the contract that we have with Justine Hingston, who's in there right now, or this week, driving me crazy. I also cover property and liability insurance. I am expecting some increase here because we've had a lot of workers' comp experience over the last year, and that typically hits me at an increase in the next year. So,
So there's been an increase in it? Is that what you
Yeah,
said?
we've had just, it's
A lot of
been a
people
bad year.
getting injured?
Yeah, it's been a bad,
Is that the police?
Yeah,
one?
police, fire, or who's?
it's, some of it is police and fire, some of it is non-111F type of experience.
What does that mean?
111F is if an officer is injured in the line of duty, then that's a different insurance
Right.
coverage. So if they were hurt at home, but, you know, can't come in,
Yeah.
then, you know, then we use a different insurance policy for that. That's the short-term disability.
Yeah, disability, I was gonna say, right.
So the property and liability insurance includes workers' comp. We've had some, I think with the school too, which would be covered under here. But we've had an increased caseload. Go ahead.
But my question was still gonna be on you showed the increase in the insurance as a mission budget.
Right. It's real, I mean, it's gonna happen, you know, I think it's so, because the directive was level expenses in the mission budget. So I had to plug that in there, but the reality is.
Level staffing, right?
It was level staffing, yes, but in the level staffing budget directive, we said to keep your expenses.
But if we know it's gonna be higher,
We're gonna have to put it
then we
in.
have to, it's gotta be the right number, otherwise we're kidding ourselves.
Right.
So
You're
even
gonna
though it
come and ask for
shows
Berman.
here, this is the insurance for the town?
This is the property and liability insurance for the town, yes.
Okay.
So it covers all of the buildings, It would cover any type of like cruiser damage, that's covered under here too. We've had a couple of cruiser damages, so I'm expecting, just based on the history, I checked with Maya and we're gonna have an increase.
So that's more like 360, 340 is what you're
Yeah.
saying? Okay.
Yep. So when we craft the budget, the draft budget, I will use the 360 and qualify that, it's not the level funded amount, but we have to pay it. Central Communications, I was thinking that I would have to increase this, but because of removing the copper lines, I think I'll be able to manage it within the $65,000 that we're currently paying. You can see I was right up against it for 14, but I think we'll be able to manage it with a reduction in the copper lines that for the police. And that covers, the whole town's telephone expense.
So it's not related to your budget per se, but I picked it up on the writing here, and you did this in all the budgets. So the COLA adjustments aren't reflected in these, but in your budget that you do, you have it reflected, correct?
I have a reserve for,
Okay. I want to make sure.
and I'll, apportion that accordingly if that's what ends up happening. Okay, so under the next.
Is it in the same tab?
It's in the same tab.
Can I ask a question on your area?
Sure.
The second page of your memo, performance workload indicators, units measured and the like.
Mhm.
First indicator, so fiscal year 13, almost $93 million.
Mhm.
So it's $93 million that you've passed through your office,
In transactions, yes.
and with a roughly a $36 million budget.
Light and water.
So light and water.
And any construction.
Because everything in town does go through you.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
So that's why it would go down, and you had some
Yeah, and
one-time
we-
costs are there as well as ongoing expenses.
Yep. So the next department to look at is assessors. It's a little further in there. We have 3 employees. Yeah, just keep moving through. 3 employees in the Board of Assessors office. A full-time chief assessor at 40 hours a week and 2 assistant assessors at 35 hours a week. We have a part-time senior work data collector also. Ken Milgren retired last year, so Kathy Miller took over. She's been doing very well, and we're getting ready to finalize the tax rate recap process for the December 1st hearing. The assessor's office is completely in-house at this point. We do all of the valuations and everything in-house. It's a benefit to the resident because if there's a question, they can come in and get their question answered rather than having vendor services come out and do it. Kathy is using some vendor services this year to kind of bring her up to speed for personal property, but pretty much everything else is done in-house.
Ken? And that's Ken, the outside service?
Ken Gurge is legal services for ATB defense, appellate tax board cases that might be filed.
Ken Mildred had been providing some services, right?
Ken Ken still volunteers and comes in and helps us through the,
Okay.
anything that,
Volunteers?
yeah, he does. So, this is again, a level staffing budget, so we're looking at, no increase in FTEs at this point. We're just looking at the step increases that would be due to employees. We are expecting some turnover here too. Anita has announced that she's going to be retiring. She has been very gracious in kind of being flexible with her end date to accommodate some cross-training in the next few months. So the position has been posted. We're going to review the applications this week and then kind of figure out where we go from there. And to be frank, I think, Lorraine will not be too further, along behind her. I'm hoping she'll stay as, for the next few years, but, I realistically, I know that she'll be the next one to let me know. And with that, with Ken and Anita and Lorraine, there's a tremendous amount of history, just institutional knowledge that, is walking out the door. So I'm grateful that they are really trying to work with us on the transition. The budget, again, the only increases we're looking for is just for the step increases. Collector. Another department under change. Do you want to do treasurer? Treasurer first. Yeah. So Becky is retiring the end of December. We did go through a posting process, and it is on the Board of Selectmen's agenda for Monday. We got a very qualified internal candidate. We had external internal, but Debbie Richards from the school department applied, and she knocked it out of the park. She was a great candidate. She knows the software. She's worked on SoftWrite. They use SoftWrite in the collector's office. We're very familiar with Debbie. Debbie interacts with both my office and the treasurer's office on a daily basis. She fits with the staff.
I don't know her. What is her role in the school department?
She works with Steve Mark. She's like the assistant business manager position. So she does a lot of technical detail work, which is critical in the collector's office. So Becky's going to work with her and do some cross-training over the next month and transition out. Becky is probably one of actually she is the best technical collector I've worked with ever. If there's a problem, I assume it's on my end because she's that good. She's just...
So technically, you mean just accuracy and all those things?
Accuracy, and I mean, it's
Details.
unbelievable. And she does everything on time. I mean, I've worked in other communities where they haven't turned over tax title work for 4 years. Becky turns it over every year. Whatever the schedule is, that's what she does. Her collection ratio is almost 100%. It's...
Oh my God, I saw that.
It's amazing, amazing.
Would you say no to it?
No, yeah, exactly.
Her nickname, the leg breaker?
I'm afraid. So on this budget, there's actually a reduction for level staffing because, you're bringing in another person in at a lower step. So,
Right.
but the same level of staffing, we do share the, Linda Lord is the assistant, and that's shared with the town clerk. We are going to make some physical changes in the office. When you go in there, Diane will go to the back of the office because she needs some of the quiet time. She should not be the first person in there.
Anything done where she
So
is.
we are going to, push her to the back. She's agreed to do that, and we'll put the Linda and the collector closer to the counter so that she can get some peace and get some work done.
Is it conferences and meetings? Is that training?
That's
for-
training, yeah.
Okay.
That's training for the new things that Debbie's going to need to learn. She needs to learn Mass General Law as it relates to the collector's office versus the school finances. So that would be the only increase there. Let's see. Treasurer. Okay. Treasurer's office has changed radically in the last 5 years, probably maybe a little bit more than that. When I first came, we had, the treasurer and an assistant treasurer and like a part-time clerk. The treasurer's office has been inundated with human resource issues because payroll goes through the treasurer's office primarily. In the last, as you mentioned with Park and Rec, in the last 5 or 6 years, there's been a lot of regulations and changes in HR and how you calculate this, how you need to, manage staffing levels. So Ian Essman, God love her, is the primary contact for that. But just in looking at the staffing level over the last few years, that's the primary driver for the increase in the treasurer's office, just the HR function. Benefit coordination, retiree benefits, active employee benefits.
There's always a line outside her office.
There is,
like,
yeah.
telling her, I mean, she's
If she steps away for lunch, there's, 3 people when she comes back. It's crazy. So it is a very busy office. I do share my office suite with them, so I can attest to that. The treasurer also does all of the cash management responsibilities, tax title. So once, somebody gets out of line with Becky, they go over to Steve. And he does an excellent job in collecting those tax title accounts. But there is an expense associated with it that's about $10,000 a year for case management with our tax title attorney. Also under the treasurer's office is employee benefits. This is an estimate. At this point, we're looking at a 10% increase. We had about a 7% increase last year, so it might be a little bit high, but again, it depends. It's not just the premium increase, it could be enrollment. But we've been managing that fairly well. We had a large spike about 5 years ago, and since then it's kind of leveled off in the amount of people enrolling in our insurance. We also have the 10% increase programmed for, it's called Transfer to Trust Funds. That's our OPEB account, and that's per the fiscal policy. You can see all the debt service by issuance here. It's going to be the final year for the Shattuck Street townhouse renovations that were done many years ago. So you see the principal and interest removed from that, and again, per our fiscal policies, that money would not roll to the operating budget. It would be available for one-time use or reserves or something like that. There are no staffing increases requested here, no additional hours. We're just programming for any step increases that would be due for Steve and Cynthia and Carol. And we will be working with Maya, our insurance provider, over the next, pretty much, we really start the grunt work in February over the new rates for both the employee and retiree benefits. So we'll have more data.
On this page here, are the annotations on the side?
Yep.
When it says expense shortfall in 14 was covered by excess salary line, and it's the same as expected for 15.
Yeah, typically what we do is where it's appropriated for the entire finance and budget department. If he's short, which he has been, I'll cover it out of either mine or Becky's or whoever's running a little extra. We'll transfer between departments. So he did run short last year, and I was able to
Why is there an excess salary line though? That I don't understand.
because we had
Somebody's out?
staffing
Somebody
change.
leaves and they
Yeah.
don't get hired soon enough? Okay, so
Or
it
they
was
get
15,
hired at a
but it's
lower
not in
level.
16, so, okay, and I was thinking we were planning this for 16, so why would we do that? But okay, I see, it's in Hadlock.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Sorry.
So we do our best to try and.
That's great. Just want to understand.
And then I have to collector's treasure.
Okay. Questions?
You want to do conservation?
Is that one of yours too?
Yeah, I don't need a 45-minute lunch.
Keith, you may well want to call, so it looks like we're going to be
No,
getting to know you.
it's time for lunch.
I know that, but after lunch, if we're knocking off some of these, all we're
Some of
doing
these
services
quick
not coming
ones?
into 3, we're going to be done with everything else by 2 probably.
It's fine.
I have Pam's cell number, and I can call her to come in early, so.
Conservation.
Yes, James Pickard called me and said that he's dealing with his corn today, so that he did not think he was going to be able to make it, so. I'll give them a-
Six. All right.
With corn in November?
Yeah, he said, I gotta.
Corn on
gotta
his
be at
foot,
work."
maybe?
That's not conservation. Conservation, 6.
Okay. Conservation is in a sense of flux right now, where we are posting for a conservation agent or coordinator position right now for 35 hours a week, using additional wetland fee funding to support that position. Previous to that, we had a 20-hour-a-week administrative assistant position. In there.
Been vacant for a while, hasn't it?
Yeah. It's been ongoing for, what, since July?
August.
August. So it is posted, it may be posted again. This department, aside from personnel, has very limited expense costs. They have a $1,000 appropriation for expenses. They might, depending on who gets hired, they might need additional training. I'm not sure at this early point. If they do, then I would come back and let the board know. But the $47,000 budgeted salary is offset to some degree by about $24,000 from the wetland fund. I don't know how long that will be sustainable. They just changed the wetland fees, so we're hoping that, we'll be able to figure out what the annual impact of that would be. But you can see that the wetland fund had about $42,000 in it at the beginning of the year.
Who gets charged those fees? I mean, where does that come from?
It's anybody doing any work in the buffer zone, or any of the fees that the Conservation Commission would need.
Applies for review by the Conservation Commission. It's an
Okay.
application fee.
So they need, those fees go in here and can be used in support of the Wetland Protection Act,
Okay.
which includes staffing. So they're planning on using about 24,000 of that to support this position. But in, 2 years, we might need to take a look at that and see if it needs to be reduced, because I don't think it's sustainable at this level.
And frankly, the amount of service that we may need from the position could fluctuate with the amount of activity going on in town. That right now, there's a big need for it, and we'll monitor it over time. It may not be a continuing need that we have a few years from now.
Have we looked into talking to other local bordering towns to see if they can do some regionalization in that?
Had numerous conversations, even in recent years, but over the years, and we have not been able to put together a combination. I had several towns that were interested in exploring it. Ultimately, each one went their own separate ways, but that's certainly something that we can continue to look at. Because in the final analysis, if we could just purchase, it's one model, if we could just purchase the services that we need, frankly, the way that we do with health agent services. That's great service, quality product that the Neshoba Federated Boards of Health offers, but we only buy what we need. So we can continue to look at that as time goes on.
Okay? What's that?
Oh, no, they're coming in.
Oh, they are,
Yeah.
okay.
Get it all done before lunch.
I'm done.
All right, I think that's it. All right. Donald's brought us a nice lunch. We can enjoy now. So thank you very much. We'll be back at
I'll have to
12:45.
Yes, Market Basket had breakfast, so.